Good evening, and thank you for your patience. We had a closed session that we had to get through. We're going to change the agenda a little bit to accommodate you folks. I believe most of you are here to hear the discussion and the decisions on the municipal field. So what we're going to do is the following. We're going to entertain a discussion amongst the 7 of us. Then we're going to have public comment just on the artificial turf field issue. And then the 7 of us will make a decision as to where we're going with the turf. So I just want to open the discussion by giving you a sense of what I believe we need to come to conclusion with tonight. There's basically 3 parts of the equation that need to be resolved. The first is the timing. We need to come away from this meeting in a manner that allows us to put together a field that will be completed by September. We have promised a number of groups that use the field in September in the fall season. It's by far the busiest time of the year for the municipal field. We've all agreed over the last year or 2 that the field has basically reached the end of its useful life, and we need to resolve that. To me, that's the most important issue. We have to come away knowing that this field will be done by September. It has to be done during the summer, because if we don't do it by the summer, it's not going to get done till next year. And I don't believe that we want to be playing on that field for another year. That's number 1. Number 2 is the decision whether or not to expand the turf beyond the football and soccer fields and the left field leg to fill in the areas that are dirt and grass. That, of course, will mean a larger expenditure. In return, though, you cut back on the amount of cost of maintaining that grass and dirt area. So in my mind, it's a wash. That's the second part of the decision we have to make. And the third part of the decision, which you may or may not be interested in, is how we're going to pay for this field. The 2 options are to use funding from our open space, or the other is to capitalize it. And foresight by this governing body a year ago put together, I believe, was $420,000 already. So we're not going to need to finance the entire project, just the overage over $420,000. It could come to as much as $150,000, or it might be less. So, without further ado, I'll start over here with Dan, Councilman Park. Put your 2 cents in. We'll all go around once, and then we'll open the discussion to the public.
I'm in favor of expanding it to the outer border and using open space dollars for it.
Councilwoman Dayton, and welcome to your first work session.
Thank you. So as the rec liaison, I've had the opportunity to work with Jamie Cannon, our rec director, and the rec board to find out what's the best use for this field. And it is unanimous across the rec board that they would like to see the expanded field. They believe that the expanded turf allows for better play around the goals. It allows for better storage of the sports equipment, for parents to be able to go on the sidelines more comfortably without the debris and the vegetation that's there now. The proposals, just so everyone knows, there's 3 proposals right now that have been offered by a company called Field Turf and Mazer Consulting to do the work. The first proposal was done on August 5th. It's approximately $594,000. It would be for the full field. It does not include, it does include the synthetic turf material by Field Turf. It does not include an additional layer that's called Cool Play. That would be for the hotter months to reduce the amount of heat on the field. But again, I understand that we don't have as many sports on the municipal field in July and August, when this would be the biggest issue. The second proposal on the table is a December 5th proposal, in total $488,000. This would be for the partial field with the Cool Play layer, so that's about 69,000 square feet. It does not include the additional borders or the edges around the turf. The final proposal actually came in this week, for those of you who haven't seen it. It includes the full field, 72,000 square feet, with the Cool Play layer, and it comes in at $634,000. Now, after speaking with the rec board and speaking with our council, I've looked up stuff on Field Turf. I am in favor of the full field. I believe it is a benefit for our town to have the full field, to do it correctly this time around. I think it's better longevity for the field to have the borders extended. It's less wear and tear for the center of our field. I am in favor of the cool play layer. That being said, there is a very expensive layer. The layer itself is about $40,000. So we will have to see if we can raise capital or decide on that as a council. Now, I do believe that the January 22nd, the most recent proposal, has it broken down between what the turf cost will be and what the construction from Mazer Consulting will be. And I'm very comfortable purchasing the turf at this time. I do believe that we need more information from Mazer Consulting. They have given us 2 different work directives. One is engineering work and one is ancillary work that would be done after the field is completed to make the field look more as it does today with vegetation or trees and fencing. I do believe some of the information in these proposals may be duplicative, but until I have more information from Mazer, I cannot know that. And so in reviewing the details of the proposals in these lump sum, engineering for $55,000 and ancillary for $50,000, I would need more information before I raise that capital.
Tony?
I too am 100% in favor of doing the entire field. We should have done it this way when we first did it years ago. It will save on upkeep, it will save on cutting grass, the aesthetics, and it's the right way to go. I do, though, fully support us paying for this out of the trust fund. That's what the monies are there for, not to just sit in the bank and collect interest. It's there to be used for recreational activities, and what better use than to put it towards a field. If we add it as another capital expense, it's going to cost the borough a lot of money down the road. Plus, we have some major capital expenses that we are committed to this year, one being a brand-new fire truck for the fire department. So this is the only way to handle it, in my view.
Sean?
I am also in favor of doing the entire field. I think that is the right way to go. And I personally think the cool fill or cool play, whatever it's called, is a good idea, but it will depend on the final numbers, what they are. And I agree with Lauren that we need to look closely at all the engineering costs. We need to cost it out. I think the cost of the field as proposed is reasonable, but the extra engineering costs, we have to look at each line item and decide what we want to do and how to proceed. I do not think we should use all the funds out of the Open Space Trust. I think we can use some from capital. We already put aside some there. And if absolutely necessary, we can look at it, but at this point, I'm not in favor of using the money out of open space funds. But yes, I'm totally in favor of doing the entire field, covering all the areas that are not as yet covered.
Thanks.
First of all, it seems that this is a big issue. I see there is a lot of people, coming over here. I saw an email coming through, and there was a lot of misinformation on that email. Too bad that we have to go through misinformation to get a lot of people over here and trying, because I understand that Lauren, who is our coordinator, our liaison, has very clearly made clear to the rec board that we are looking to see how we can actually fund the entire field. And I don't know why we had to go through, but okay. Let's go through the issues one by one. To create the entire field, we have 2 specific charges, and I'm going to be very precise because I spend a lot of time with the field turf today to come and find a solution, the best way for us to proceed. The most important thing when we talk about timing is to be able to have the field prepared and ready, and have field turf basically be ready to prepare the materials and everything. So during the July-August period, when we have minimum activity and there is no school, we have the field ready to work. I talked to Filterf, and basically, they have a proposal today for us for the entire field for $449,000. I'm just going to round it up at $450,000 to make it easier.
That's
Cool
not
play.
the entire field.
Yes, that's for the entire field.
Just the field turf.
Yes, the filter part. The cool fill, it's not a layer, it's a filler. The way the field is done, you lay out the basic carpet, then you fill it up with different mixtures between sand and additional things. In the regular fields, you use carbon, basically tires, chopped tires, and we don't want to do that because even though it's not scientifically proven, it basically, there is a whiff of, it might be carcinogen, and we don't want to have our children to be exposed under any circumstances to that type of problems. As such, this cool fill, which is basically mixing with the sand instead of the rubber, becomes an alternative. And what is also good with this cool fill, it's used all over the southern United States because as a mineral, does not allow the fill to heat up. And a fill that in the summer goes up to 110, 120, with a cool fill stays at maximum 90 degrees, which is still a lot, but it's good. So to make a long story short, to add the cool fill to the $450,000, it's going to be $490,000, roughly. The additional work that will be performed by the consultants, it doesn't have to be immediately funded because as we get our information about how much work has to be done, there is a lot of duplication in the initial proposal. We can take care of that. That doesn't have to be part of the immediate funding. So what we need, since we already have $430,000, I guess, already existing capital, we need to fund immediately the difference between 450 plus 40, 490, and what existing right now we have 400. So we're talking 60 to 70,000. To make it round, so in case that there are some overruns because a turf field doesn't know for sure if the dimensions of the field are exactly what they have, maybe we need to put extra now. We probably should add another, let's say, $80,000, $90,000, let's say. So the issue today is, since we all agree that we want to do the entire field, is to find a way to fund immediately $100,000 so we can get the turf field, start building up so we are ready for the actual summer season to get the turf replaced. And then we're going to have to go through the travelation to make sure that we don't get overcharged. This is not a gravy train when we go talking to the consultants and so on. That can take place at a different pace, and we can basically make sure that that doesn't happen. So in my mind, the issue today is how do we fund the $100,000? And I know a lot of people say, oh yeah, let's use the open field. Well, open field is not a slash fund. Open space money is specifically to purchase open space. And we had a big problem, if you remember 53 Knickerbockers, where those funds got depleted, and that beautiful parcel that we could have bought was just basically now is divided in housing and so. We don't want that to happen again. And even though people say, well, there are other properties that we know they're going to come on the market, and we need the money, and we already appropriated money for the Pfister Pond out of the open space fund, and we don't want this to create like this is going to be the slash fund. Do you need 50? I'll get you 50, here go. So in my mind, that has to be done through a very careful capital allocation. Now, I talked to Filterf today, and I said, what do you need from us in order to be able to fulfill the field by the June, July, August? And they said the only thing we need, even it's a letter of intent. We don't need money from you till end of May, when we will have the capital already settled, and we can allocate out of the capital, and we can move forward. They do not need any money up front. It's just for us to find a way to basically fund this $100,000 and we will find a way without having to chop the open space fund. And the only thing that we have to then work out internally, because it seems so far, and I don't have to, that everybody says, let's fund today the filter. Let's find a way how to get this $100,000 from existing transfer, whatever, so we can move forward, even, and even maybe negotiating with filter, whatever they need in order for them to start, because money they only need in May. And by then, we'll have the capital done, finished, and arranged. So this is basically my view. I know that you all are here specifically because you want the field basically done, and we will do that.
Jeff?
Mr.
No, no,
Mayor, just one second. Jeff, before you go, I think it's imperative that we clarify some miscommunication, because I certainly don't want the audience to believe everything that you're saying. I first want to make sure that everybody is clear, and I'm going to say this once. If I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. Please do not use the word "we," because we are not part of this. Maybe you are, but we are not part of this. So take that out of your language, first of all. Secondly,
Yeah.
I'm a little disturbed with the fact that you are having personal contact with a company that's going to maybe or maybe not do a field on our behalf. That's one hell of a conflict in my view. And I'm not an attorney, but you don't have to be a genius to figure that one out. And when you start talking about monies and we won't have to pay the engineering fees, we'll wait. I realize that the engineer is allowing us to just pay as we go.
No,
Hold on, Max. You spoke uninterrupted. He has the floor, then Jeff is going to have the floor.
Can I
Okay?
please respond?
No, let him finish. Let him finish.
All I'm saying is that whatever information we submit from this dais, it is factual, correct, and no fabrications, because at the end of the day, the public is entrusting us to make a logical, sound decision.
Right. So
That's all I ask.
everything that I said is factual.
No, it's not.
It is. Basically,
Absolutely
the
not.
numbers that we discuss are factual. The necessity to pay the engineer is not as high as basically preparing the turf for production. And we can do that basically because the engineering work is going to be. So if you have a problem with you can ask Jeff, you can ask Shama.
I'd like Jeff to have an opportunity to speak. Max,
So-
you've already spoken.
Thank you.
Jeff?
All right, I know you don't need to hear more of the back and forth. So let me just summarize. I think Councilwoman Dayton did an excellent job of giving you the numbers. I'm just going to give you two numbers, and this is what we're confronting, because one of the numbers that you didn't hear is that the amounts presuppose that field turf can recycle some of the field. And there's an allowance for that of $39,000, so that if they can't recycle, that gets added into the numbers we have. So
Jeff,
it's an additional.
may I just tell you something?
Right.
Because I had a discussion with the engineer today, and that $39,000 is built in
Right.
to the field turf price. So if they can't recycle it, the price does not go up. If they can recycle it, the price will go down as much as $39,000.
I understand that,
So-
and if I had finished the point being that the bottom line number is not the $590,000 that you heard before, but the price is $634,000 for a full field. So well in excess of $500,000. What would happen is that if it can be recycled, that $634,000 then gets reduced up to $39,000, depending on the amount they can recycle. The smaller field, adding in that same amount, because that's what the does say, is $488,000 for a partial field, just under $500,000. I think you're hearing a very strong consensus here, and I join that consensus, that the whole field has to be done. And what we're doing is a state-of-the-art field. We're adding the cool play. Field Turf has agreed to do certain markings and yard markings. It's really, we are getting the Mercedes-Benz here. The question becomes, and you're hearing the back and forth of it, is how we're going to pay for it. Look, we all know, we've all bought cars, and we know that there are many options. You can pay partial cash, you can lease it, you can finance it. There are 100 different ways to do it. I don't think that's as important in this point for most of you as the fact that we are going to buy it. It's a big chunk of change, and we need to discuss exactly how we're going to allocate funds to pay for it. And you're going to hear some disagreement on it, but the bottom line is that it will be paid for. You'll have the field. The faster we move on this, the faster that we can commit to it being done this summer, as opposed to being put off, because the field's 14 years old. My kids played Little League on that field, and I know the field already was not perfect then, and we want to provide the best possible. So those are my comments.
So I'm relieved to get a sense that there is a unanimous consensus to do the entire field. In other words, the areas that are grass and dirt will now be taken care of. However, I'm a bit dismayed about some of the discussion about the open space fund versus capitalization. There were some misstatements made that I want to correct. And we're fortunate enough to have the auditor here today, and if I misspeak, I would ask you to stand up and come to the microphone and correct me, or Susan, our CFO, as well. First of all, to go back, and I don't know why this was brought up, but 53 Knickerbocker was not a pretty issue in Tenafly. We lost a beautiful estate. We did not lose it because we didn't have enough money in our open space fund. And I say open space fund, it is not a slush fund. And anybody that refers to that is not showing a knowledge or an understanding of it. Nobody here uses it as a slush fund. We've only taken money out of it once, and that was to purchase property. All right. The reason we didn't buy or consider purchasing 53 Knickerbocker was the cost, number one. Not that we couldn't afford it. We could have bonded for whatever the open space was. We didn't know what to do with it. You spend $7 million on a 7-acre piece of property. What are you going to do to just use it to justify the cost? And what is it going to cost to maintain? These are questions that were never answered, and the council did the wise thing, even though in the long term, we hated to see that property go. We let it go, and the end result is probably as good a result as you could expect from the 7 acres. We got 10 houses up there. You can't send Field Turf a letter of intent. Unfortunately, we are in the public sector. In the private sector, you can do a lot of things as long as two parties agree to it. We have to have a specific allocation of funds committed before we can make a commitment to a vendor. Okay? And this is my biggest concern tonight, because I hear, well, we're going to have discussion about this and that. We've been discussing this for almost 2 years. It's time to you-know-what or get off the pot. All right? We really have to make a decision tonight, or all the intentions of getting the field by September are really going to go out the window. So this body has to decide tonight, open space or capitalization. And by the way, we can't borrow money from one to pay the other. That's just not allowed. You know, we have boundaries here that we don't create. So the open space money, you know, it's an opinion. Some people say the only thing we want to use it for is to buy property. Okay, that's a reasonable opinion. But the title of the fund is Open Space, Recreation, and this is recreation. We capitalized $420,000. Whatever the cost of this project is, we're only talking about the balance tonight. And we're not talking about a consultant's fee. We're talking about an engineer's fee. The engineer, who is a professional, is the one that oversees a project of this nature. We aren't qualified to do that, regardless of how some people feel about themselves. The engineer will be there looking after our interests, and they're not going to overcharge us. There's no way to get around it. We're required to have an engineer oversee this. And you can't commit to Field Turf today and the engineer next week. That's just not the way the system works. So this body tonight has to say to our administrator and our CFO, commit the money from the open space fund or commit the money from capitalization for this project. Now, I understand from listening to everybody, the project is pretty much, the parameters of the project have been decided. We're going to use the cool play, and we're going to do the whole field. Okay? So the only discussion left is open space or capitalization. And as long as we make that commitment tonight, the field can get done. If we leave it, well, we got to discuss the engineer's fees next week. Well, we don't meet next week. We don't meet for 2 weeks. And then it'll go on and on like it's going on for 2 years. So I'm asking the 6 of you to come to a decision tonight. I certainly favor the open space fund. Oh, by the way, we have people here that want to have a 0% budget increase this year. Well, if you capitalize things, that's going to go right into the budget, not the capitalization, but the interest, and it's going to make your job of keeping the budget down that much lower. You folks have paid an open space tax. How do you feel about paying the open space tax and then property tax on top of that? I think that's part of the discussion we'd like to hear from you tonight. So we'll open it up for public comment.
Can I just ask one question?
Well,
just to clarify one thing. If we use the open space money, A, versus capitalization, if we use the open space, we can forge ahead immediately with this field. But if we go with the capitalization, we stand a chance of not being able to do this field on a timely manner.
I'll ask our administrator to address that.
That is accurate. Although we would have to slip it a month, there is a very detailed schedule in the memorandum from the engineer, which gives you the timeline if you use open space versus the timeline if you use the capital budget only. And he makes it clear that the schedule assumes that the winning contractor has the ability to mobilize and start the project within 60 days of winning the bid. The day that you open the bid, the project doesn't start. So this schedule has taken into account the full range. And thinking that someone's going to walk in the door July 1st and we're going to have a completed field September 1st is not very realistic.
Susan, what is the balance in our open space fund now?
It's, in open space is about 1.8 million.
We have 1.8 million, and that fund gets replenished every year about $330,000?
Almost 400,000.
So if we were to take as much as 200,000 out of it, by next year at this time, we would have almost $2 million in that fund, correct? More than that.
I have a question.
Please.
Is there,
Hold on a second, Lauren, just wait till this crosstalk is done. I want them to speak.
for Jewel, question for Jewel.
Yeah, Jewel.
Is there any opportunity for us to look for a grant for the Bergen County Open Space Fund?
No. And I say that because of the fact that the Bergen County Open Space, which also operates under the same provisions that our funding source does, their application timing is already set. So the process is already closed for this year. We would be asking for funding that would actually be
So why didn't we do that last year?
Because the program has been restructured. Communities can only submit one project, and quite frankly, the size of the projects has been reduced significantly. And it's just no longer feasible. They're not going to pay for fields anymore because of the cost.
From what I understand, though, we just received a small grant from them for repaving our tennis courts, and that's about $40-something thousand. But when I reviewed the statute recently for the Bergen County, I mean, their idea is to have larger fields. I mean, I think this is supposed to be some relief for the towns to do a project like this. And what they say is the project must be done within 2 years. So there's no way to apply for this year and receive monies back into our budget next year for this project.
And keep in mind, this conversation started 2 years ago.
And nothing was ever applied in Bergen County for a grant?
Not here, no.
Well, that's a problem.
Public comments, and if you
Quick
just
question for
read,
Jewel.
I'm
Quick
sorry?
question for Jewel.
Oh, Dan, Councilman Clark?
So, in the one where you break out the two timelines,
Yes.
They both have an August construction start, if possible. Is it possible that this August timeline on the open space one moves up because of the fact that it can be awarded?
No, because the field's in use.
Gotcha.
Public comment? And then we'll go around the table one more time before we make our decision. Sir, just come up to the microphone, just state your name and the street that you live on. You don't need your street number.
See, he's telling me in the beginning.
Try and keep your comments to 3 minutes, and give the speaker courtesy, because, so we don't really necessarily get too much redundancy.
Hello.
Okay.
Mike Rabakowitz, Sussex Road. One, I had a whole story about how doing jobs the right things the first time, but you guys blew that out because you're doing the right thing the first time. So that's good. I'm commend you on coming to agreement to get everything, the cool play, the extended thing. I'm from I play with the adult league now. Those of you who know me from Tenafly, I was involved with the junior soccer league. My kids went through it. When my kids stopped playing, a lot of the coaches got together, and we're now a force I think that's kind of somewhat underserved, but getting better in the rec program is the adult rec side. So to your point, the field may not be used a lot by the kids in the summer. We play throughout the year, and I appreciate that. And we refer to the field out there as, the fuzzy green concrete, because any of us older guys that are playing on it feel it from playing. And a lot of guys have stopped playing on it because it's just too much on their joints. So I commend you for coming to that. From my standpoint, the open space money versus, I want to look at whatever is going to get the job done first, the quickest. And my understanding is open space money is taxpayer money. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
So if open space money is taxpayer money, I feel that we should do whatever is going to get this done quicker, because the longer we play on that field, more people are getting injured. I could tell you, I think our injuries have gone up, although sometimes it's just tears, it's twists. But I definitely know playing on that field, we've got more than life out of it. I think it's been there for close to 14 years, and I think that from someone who's active in the area and active with the Tenafly Adult League, that we should do it, whatever is going to expedite it, whatever is going to start the project the quickest, because I also am a project manager. I do that in my real job, and I know that when you start trying to piecemeal accounting and you start piecemealing...
Hold on a second. Lauren, Shama, please give this gentleman the courtesy of listening. We'll have time to talk after the public comment is done.
My fear is, well, Max, I understand your concern about trying to put it together in pieces. Having been a project manager, that usually, to me, always extends things and causes problems. It's easier to get all the money up front and then figure out how to pay for it later. So, for me, and I can't speak for everybody, I know a lot of the people who I play with, they may come up to, but I think we should do whatever we can to expedite this and get that field replaced as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak?
Michael Greeley, 158 River Edge Road. I wear many hats in the borough, as many of you know. One of them is the rec board chair. I would like to thank all of you for coming to support the initiative. Obviously, you've seen our support of this, and I appreciate you coming to terms with this being a project that needs to get done sooner than later. I feel compelled to speak in terms of the timeline, and I feel that time is critical, and I feel that this field is long past its lifespan. We all understand that and know that. For almost 6 years, we've looked to address the issues and concerns of that field. Now, over the last 4 years, we've had time to really understand what is really the liability that this field has become. I fear, and although I appreciate, Mr. Bash, your want of seeing this done, and certainly Councilwoman Dayton, to see this through and to cross our T's, dot our I's, do our due diligence to make sure that we're not just frivolously spending. I feel strongly, and I could speak on behalf of the rec board, that the timeline is not in line with some of the things that you want to see done. I feel that we need to look at this in terms of where we stand in our service to the community and the people that come in from other communities to utilize our facility. This is one of the gems of our community, and it is used, and it is forgive me, that's a poor word. It's something that we use, and it's something that I think has the value attached to it that we like to see. As far as the timeline, if we were to see this go through any other way, it seems as though the open space might be the only resolution to seeing this through. And although I appreciate the comments, Councilman Bash, that you mentioned, you don't want to nickel and dime the fund.
Yeah,
I can assure you that there is a value attached to this field that the community can recognize. This is a tangible. This is something that we can touch, smell, see, feel, something right before us. And whatever we're holding onto this money for the future, We don't know what that holds. It's something that may occur. And although I would love to save for a rainy day, I think the rainy day is here. And I think by putting this off any longer, it's going to be a detriment. I think that it may result in that field having been closed because of because of the liability that it poses to our community. Thank you all for your time. For the new council folks, I appreciate you coming forward and doing what you're doing, and good luck. Yes?
No, I just hold your applause till the mayor speaks. Anybody else care to speak? Please.
Okay, good evening. My name is Ariel Nahar. I live in 55 Norman Place, Tenafly. And you know what, before I put my sentence together, I would like to use this opportunity and thank you, Mayor Rustin, for supporting the program. And the nice three ladies over there, Lisa, Carol, and our director, Jamie, who are doing a great job to accommodate everybody. And this is part of what I wanted to say. The current situation is that we are missing a field. We need more fields like that in order to support all the programs. It's very tough for those young ladies to get everybody together, and sometimes they need to push and squeeze. So we definitely need the entire field to be done. Second, we need you as our representative to take decisions. And if you can expedite it by using the open space money, let's do it. If it's not going to be simple, it's simply not going to happen. So please, let's do it simple and quicker, and if we can do it before the end of the summer, that will be great. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Merchant, 130 Columbus Drive. I am a member of the Recreation Board, and like our leader, I want to express our gratitude for making the right decision, because I know now that there is no debate that we will do the complete field and do it right once and for all. What I want to say to you, though, is that time is of the essence. We want to get this done by September. And so I urge all of you to make the right decision to fund this the most expeditious and effective way so that we can get the job done sooner rather than later. We've spent a lot of time talking. There's no disagreement what we want to do, and we know we have funds available. So I urge you to make the right decision and make that decision tonight so that the work can get done. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else care to speak?
Good evening. Robert Silber, Glenwood Road. I've had the privilege of representing both soccer, rec and travel, serve on the Recreation Commission, probably have walked the field as much as anybody in the room to know how important the decision you made to cover the entire field. I guess the open issue is two issues. One, getting it done on time, and if all the taxpayers who are sitting here have paid their money to an open space budget, that you now have the money. If you had another project and you said, look, we're doing rails to trails, we've applied $1.5 million to that, we don't have any money left, I appreciate that. But I haven't heard anybody say we have another project here, yet I've heard that we have more than enough money to cover the overage without having to bond and without having to delay the process any further than you need to. And it clearly, as you've all discussed, and everyone is here because of that, it's a critical need to get it done and have it done this summer. As a rec commission, we wanted it done a year ago. Didn't happen, we understand we're here today, and that's why most of our rec board is here today, to strongly, strongly encourage that it gets done this summer. And I would personally say we'd like to have it done with the open space money we have. My only other comment too is there's a large branch in the corner of the field that hopefully near Froggy Park, you can cut that branch because that definitely hurts the wearability of the field. And I spent many times raking up a lot of acorns and other debris there. It doesn't serve any purpose for Froggy Park, but it does hurt the field. And it's something I would hope that you could have the DPW take care of before the field gets prepped over the summer. Thank you, and thank you for your decision to support the field.
Don't put your rake away.
How is everybody? Jamie Cannon, Recreation Director. I just want to thank you so much for deciding to do the entire field. It's extremely important. I've been doing recreation, I've been a program director for more than 10 years. I've been here for almost a year in Tenafly. And I have to say on my end that these people behind me are the most enthusiastic bunch. And I always get emails about the lights, and everyone wants to play on the field. And I think that's super important, and that's the most important part of this community. And now with that is the timeline. So when they call me for field space, I want to make sure that it's available for them. If this project could be done in August, that would be great, because I know that our field scheduling, and I'm just going to run a couple numbers for you. In 2017, we had 3,055 participants through recreation sports on our fields.
Wait, that's permits or people?
That's just people in all different sports playing on our fields. And there were over, and we ran the numbers, 2,723 hours were clocked in field use. That's a substantial amount. And that's mostly in spring and fall, but we do have summer and winter hours. These adult players play when it's snowing and raining and all the good stuff. So time is of the essence, especially with field scheduling. So on my end, it's imperative that if this project is done, it's done in a timely manner. We really appreciate it, and thank you.
Just a quick question, just for clarification, a quick question, Jamie? Just a quick question. The numbers you gave, the 3,000, that's just for Muni Field, that doesn't count Sunnyside or anything? I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak? And I would tell you, Jamie, with all due respect, what warms the cockles of my heart the greatest is not when I see an organized soccer or football game. It's usually like on Friday afternoons in the spring and the fall, when kids are just out there disorganized, sitting in circles, talking, hopefully not doing more than that, and just pick up games with their fathers. That to me is what really sets this field apart. And the fact that 10 minutes after we have a cloudburst, you can play on it again, and you don't have to come home with muddy shoes or uniforms. It's really a wonderful. We've never spent better money than this. So I get the impression that you have one more person would like to speak?
Question. I have a question, but I'll wait.
Okay, for Jamie?
Sam Mizrahi, 1500 Street. I just want to say, just to contribute more than what you just said, I think this piece of property right there is the most useful and the most creational part of our town, I think. I don't think there's any other property, even Geisinger, don't use as much time as this municipal. We are, as an adult league, as they told before, we'll wait every day that she get the permit, and we're going to come to play anytime. So for us, I think it's the most useful of the money we spent for.
Thank you. Well, if you and I were 30 years younger, we might feel the same way about the soccer cage. Yes, sir.
Soccer cage too.
Doug Cramon, 38 Jewett. I represent Tenafly softball, travel softball in particular. I would recommend also exactly what you said, Mr. Mayor. Geisinger Field, because of the light issue, is totally unusable oftentimes after it gets dark for Tenafly softball. The lights just don't reflect down on Geisinger Field. Because of that, we use every inch of that field for 10U, 12U, and 14U. And again, we're all parent-run, as everybody here knows, and softball doesn't have the numbers for girls softball that soccer does, but those numbers are growing. And the opportunity to use that field is one that really is, when we go to all these other towns, our field is prestigious with regards to the lights. Everyone at the Ridgewood meeting that we go to wants to play on Tenafly. And everyone comes to Tenafly and they all say that the field is definitely in need of repair. And you're all doing that, and we greatly appreciate that. But we, again, use every inch, and so we would love that opportunity. And as far as green space goes, from what has been said, there's no more important space than a municipal field of the town. It's like the pride of the town. So it's just beyond me that anyone on this council would think otherwise. I mean, especially as you've pointed out how the funding goes and how it's refunded every year. To me, it's a no-brainer, but that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
By the way, I have two softball players coming for you.
My name is John Finnerty, 95 Homestead Road. I'm a member of the Rec Commission. I want to pass on to you that my youngest daughter, who I spoke to, who played for Coach Silber many years ago on that field when it was new, said they haven't replaced that yet. By God, Dale, you have to try to persuade them to replace the whole field so we don't have that, the kids don't have that dirt stuff. So she'll be very happy that when I report to her what you guys have decided and women have decided to do. I have to say, I must strongly emphasize my view as well, that the open space fund is what has to be used. I mean, there's no reason for the taxpayers to be, this to be capitalized further. You have the money, it'll be replaced within a year, it's sitting there. I'm not aware of any purchases that you have in mind that you need that money for. If it's there, if it's readily available, if it makes sure, and it will by using it, that the job gets done when it needs to get done, because you can't have kids play on that field another year. You cannot allow that to happen. It is not safe for them. I walked the field on Sunday, it's bad, and there's all sorts of risks and bad things that could happen. So just use the open space fund, let's get it done, so that we can go watch games in September. Thank you.
Thank you. John, you tell your daughter, although we haven't replaced the field yet, we have replaced Coach Silber. And if nobody else has anything to add, before we go around and talk, any questions you want to address to the professionals, either Jewel, our auditor, or our CFO? Lauren, you had one?
I do. Just so I can understand, if we don't use open space, the proposal here, the timeline, how long will that get pushed off?
If we don't use open space, it begins in May.
It begins in May.
It begins in late May.
But have we done these January things at this point?
What, this January was anticipated when we had the discussion as of December 12th, but we did not make a decision. So the January would become February.
Okay.
But in essence, if we're using open space, we're shorting the process by 1 month, but we still have 3 months over which to perform all of the preparatory activities as opposed to starting in May. And as we pointed out, although they both say construction will start in August, the right-hand column really is made up to meet the time.
Backwards, it goes
Right.
backwards.
So none of this, we didn't do design services yet? We didn't do any of that stuff?
No.
Okay.
And keep in mind, the later we wait to commit to field turf, there is the possibility that they get booked. I know Max has had a lot of discussions with them. We've had discussions with them. They know we want to do the field. But if somebody comes with the money in hand, which we won't have until May, there's the possibility we get shut out. So,
I have a couple of questions
For
about the money.
Jewel?
Maybe Jewel can answer them. I was trying to get that. It's hard to read this printout, I'm sorry to say. So the cost of the field is now, I'm looking at this paragraph, Jewel, right here.
In the January 22nd.
January, yes,
Page 3.
It's starting
Page 1.
here.
Okay.
So this 55,000 is Mazer's consulting fee for the soil
Engineering.
erosion plan, et cetera, all the things listed above,
Everything is
right?
listed above.
As listed above. And the field is 450 for the total field, as listed here. Correct? Then we have 50,000, and I'm not sure what that 50,000 is for.
These are for improvements, and this is the landscaping of the field.
This is
Right.
not what Mazer is doing, this is somebody else doing this?
This would be someone else.
Okay,
And what would that be?
that 50,000.
What
it could be like fencing
Right.
and
Because even the existing fencing needs, let's put it this way, there are maintenance items that the field needs even at this point. But you're not going to spend $50,000 on maintaining a field that is essentially obsolete.
Of course.
That's the issue. So the existing fencing, the landscaping.
But we're not doing a new fence, we would
No.
only repair where it's needed, right?
Correct.
And what landscaping?
Well, by the way, that $50,000 is a maximum figure.
Yeah, but
it could
we-
easily come in below
I'm trying
that.
to understand what it is for.
Yeah.
So that is actual work that will be done.
Correct.
And that leaves us with the 40,000 more, which will be cool fill or cool play, whatever it's called.
Cool
right?
field.
Correct,
Okay, I get that now. So that's how we get to the 634.
right.
So there's 50,000, 55,000 for engineering during the project, then there's an additional 50,000 for
50,000.
ancillary work after the project.
Which is the,
But
which
they're
Julie
improvements,
explains.
those are improvements,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not.
But it's not broken down, it's just a lump sum, so I
It's
don't
a
know
lump
how much
sum.
each thing costs.
Would we have to approve each one of these improvements, basically?
But if we don't want some of them, or we want to reduce the
Well,
cost,
Yes.
we
keep
need
in
to know
mind
that.
that you're talking, the project hasn't been scoped and it hasn't been designed. These are just estimates.
Okay.
And we would have the opportunity, if they put down $20,000 for a weather vane, we can say, no, we don't
Oh,
want to
so
spend
we
it.
can look at, when we do have the opportunity
For
to
that
discuss.
$50,000 of improvements, absolutely.
But
Yes.
do we have to budget for that additional ancillary work now?
Yes.
Yes.
But we may not use it.
Yeah, but wait a second.
That's what I'm
It's
asking.
the timing for that,
To use a-
which is going to happen after the filter, the field is installed. It's not in the immediate requirements now, because that's going to be something that we're going to be done after the filter is replacing the turf.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's.
No, 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 well, no, you can't say, Max, you can't say after. It's ancillary work that has to be done, i.e. if the fence has to be
After
sectioned.
they replace the
after
field.
they- but it's-
After there's the field.
But it's part of the whole package.
It's part
We
of the whole
understand
package. Use the new DPW building as an example,
No,
okay?
no, no, well, in
There
context.
is work that still needs to be done, demolition and the parking lot. But the project still included the entire cost. The fact that it was coming later didn't mean that we could leave it
At some
out.
point
And
we
you're not-
decided
you're
we
not
didn't need-
spending it, you're
I understand
appropriating
it now. We are appropriating it, but we may or may not spend
It's very similar to the $600,000 we appropriated for the pond and may never spend.
We will never spend.
Well, I'm trying to be polite. There might be a pond person out there.
So just to add to this, an additional question. In the original August 10th proposal, the original ancillary services, no, excuse me, the original engineering services were 55,000.
Yes.
But in the next proposal on December 5th, which only takes out approximately 3,000 square feet, they reduced that number by 20,000. So it's saying the engineering services for the 69,000 square feet are now 30,000. So I'd be very curious for 3,000 square feet.
That was for the partial field.
That's the partial.
Because all you have to do is go and take it out for a second. You don't have to worry about the grass and dirt.
So it's like a percentage, the higher the field, the bigger the engineering.
So at this particular point in time,
You're digging it down.
I think that we have agreed that we're going to do the entire project, including the pool play. The question just becomes, are we going to use the open space money to fund the balance, or do we want to capitalize it? It's really a yes or no question at this particular point in
I have a
time.
question to the yes and no question. So we have in the capital budget, Julie just told me, 450,000 for this?
420.
420. So that means we still need
200,000.
214.
200, right.
Now, and this is again a question for everybody here to consider. Would you agree that we capitalize half of it and use the other half from the open space, so it's 100,000, 100, and, split the thing?
Then you can't commit till May.
No, because that was.
Because you have that 50,000.
Yeah,
You don't understand the process.
No,
But you still have that 50,000 that you need to spend, which will not be spent until the field is done.
It's one project. Everything that's in this paper, yes, is one project. You either commit for it now, or you commit for it in May.
Okay, the way it works is you have to do a bond ordinance to capitalize. Otherwise, we could just do a capital ordinance stating that we're using municipal open space. If you do it the way that you're talking about, you can't do it that way because what you're doing is, I'm going to tell you why you can't do it, because I consulted with bond counsel today, okay? We have to commit to the entire project, and it has to supplement a previous bond ordinance, the bond ordinance that we did last year for 420,000. The new ordinance is for 214,000, because I think you all agreed that you want to do the full project.
absolutely.
Okay, so now, I checked into a few items today, so all you have to decide right now is which way you're going to go, capital or municipal open
But
space.
Susan-
But you can't say, I'm going to take from municipal open space, part of municipal open space, and borrow it on the short term, and then possibly give it back.
No, we don't mean that. The question is, you can fund it partially from the open space and partially from the
But
capital.
then you have the time of essence issue.
Yeah, but that's what the whole idea is, if, what Councilman Hyder said, if you, councilperson.
No, but you can't. I'll tell you
Just
why.
bear with me,
Wait. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
I need to certify the funds, and I need to know
Okay.
the sources where the funding is coming from. I need to know that.
So I'm going to answer that.
As soon as we do any
Yeah, I'm going to answer that.
ordinances.
You need to certify the funds for the contracts that we're going to issue out. The first contract you're going to issue to Filturf, which is going to be for $490,000. The open space fund that will be $100,000, plus the $420,000 that are already in the hopper, makes it $520,000. So you can certify the Filturf acquisition because we have the funds. So you'll have the certification for that specific one. So that is done. The question is, the next one, which are the contracts for engineering and so, which we can basically do at one at a time, do not have to be certified today so they can prepare the, so we can do that in May. We have already.
Excuse me. There seems to be a total misunderstanding of what this project
No,
is.
but you have to
can't
understand-
make a deal with Field Turf when you haven't had the engineering prepares the specifications. You can't do anything with Field Turf until the engineers
Let me
work.
address that. When you do an ordinance, part of that ordinance allocates Section 20 costs. Section 20 costs are any costs for engineering, architectural, landscape design, all of that goes into the Section 20 costs. There's a percentage that we allocate to that. So in that plan, that's what you have to do in capital. If you take it from municipal open space, it's fully done. It's done immediately. We could start doing what we have to do right away. Now, I'm confused about why we want to do this in piecemeal.
Well, don't be confused.
No, I mean, I'm concerned about it.
One confused person is...
No, I'm not. Let me rephrase this. I'm concerned about why we would want to do it in piecemeal. I'm very concerned about it, but we can't do it in piecemeal. Talk to bond counsel. You have to do it supplemental.
Susan, I have a question. Wait.
The remainder of the money from
can't
open
do it.
space, or the
Can't do it
remainder
that
of the
way.
money from capital. If we do capital, we jeopardize the timing. It's very simple.
I have a follow-up.
We could have done this 2 years ago and capitalized the whole thing. We're having a problem tonight making a very simple decision, one way or the other.
So again, I'm on the learning curve here with this, but is it possible to put this in the capital budget for February and then get approved in April? That's all I'm asking, not whether we should, but is it possible?
Okay, you could put it in the capital budget, the balance, it's up to you guys. But then you're talking about our adoption being, I think, April 20th, and then there's a 20-day estoppel period. So we wouldn't be able to spend any of these funds until mid-May.
But can we move, hold on, I have a follow-up. Can we move forward on the project and bid it without the capital until May?
You have to have
The project is halted
in the
until
ordinance.
May.
So you have to certify the full 634.
That's why I had to move 661,000 in total for Fister's Pond over, because I can't certify a piece of a project.
Folks, our
and do an
professionals have
ordinance
been
on a
telling us
piece of a
this
project.
for 6 months.
Can't do it. And
that
there were some things I talked
if
to
you wanna
bond
do
counsel
this
about to find other
capitalized,
options.
It's going to be a problem.
You need to just
People
decide.
still don't- They're not listening.
Mayor, I'm trying to listen to her, please.
I went through different options with our bond counsel. Really, if you want to delay the project, you use capital funds. If you don't want to delay it, you need to use open space and be open to that. And for me, to look at the numbers and say we only need $214,000, that's going to be replenished after consulting with the bond counsel, talk to Paul. I think you really need to to use open
And
space.
if we use open space, we can't pay it back later.
Well, yes, you can.
So let's say we don't use it, let's say we
There
can
were
get
some
the
things that
contract.
came up. There were some things that came up. If you use open space,
Folks,
Business meeting there.
it's nice if we could all hear her.
if you use open space, and let's say some of the costs you decide not to do, some of your engineering costs that you want to do, when the project is completed, then we can cancel what we don't use in the project, and wherever that funding came from, the open space can go back to open space.
What if we get the money from the recycling? Can that go back into the open space?
Sure.
I don't know anything about
Well,
recycling.
no, what she's saying, what you're saying is if the.
Oh, the recycling that you talked about.
Whatever's left over.
No,
Get it back to
Open space.
no, that can't go
Back into
Open
the
space.
Peter,
I guess that's
40,000, that puts it at 160.
That would just be, no, that doesn't go back to open space. That would just be, no, because the open space funds go back to open
the
space.
recycling is of the field.
I may recognize you.
It would end up being, that part would be canceled as part, it would go to, where would that go?
Step up to the mic, please. This is
Yeah,
our
I'm not sure where
auditor.
that would go.
So exactly what's happening is that if the contract doesn't come in at the full amount that you've authorized on the funding side of it, any unexpended appropriations then would go back to the open space trust fund.
So if we have a $39,000 refund, that
Absolutely.
$39,000 can go back to open space.
It'll all revert back to the open space
So
trust.
it will go back to open space.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
And back,
it'll essentially be
just to kind of round out what Susan had said about the contract,
Please, let's listen.
Well, call this vote here. Let's stop with the nonsense. Let's go.
Just
Call
to
the damn
re-
vote. Let's go.
just to reaffirm what
Not-
Susan said.
To give-
Listen, I gotta go to work tomorrow, so let's go.
Look, while I appreciate the urgency, some of us are new to the council, and we do need to understand the process, and I don't want to be voting on using taxpayer money or open space
Well,
without full
to
information.
clarify, folks, to clarify what we're going to do here. This is a work session, not a public meeting. We will go into a public meeting later. All we need to do tonight is not vote, but have a consensus to give our administrator and our CFO permission to use the open space fund or to proceed with capitalization. That's what we're doing tonight. So we're not voting on anything. It does not require a vote. So I believe we've talked this thing out. I understand we're going to have, some people will have questions till the cows come home, but I think we need to make a decision now. So you want to start over here, Jeff, or you want me to start the, huh?
I just wanted to reaffirm what Susan had said when you're coming to the contract and the scope. So if the scope of the project includes many aspects, obviously, the contract, the engineering, and all other kinds of soft costs and other costs that are attached to it, that's one project. And so the point again being that the appropriation of funds has to include the entire scope of the project.
All right.
And that's why the appropriation of additional $214,000 will allow you to do that. And then any amount that we don't utilize at the end of the day will revert back to the open space trust.
Dan, what's your feeling?
All the way to the edges with open space.
Lauren?
I would like to do the full field with the cool player, and I'm not certain yet how to fund.
Well, we're going to make a decision tonight. You're going to abstain?
No, but I'm going to reserve until I hear more comments. Sorry.
Tony?
Open space.
Shama?
I guess we have no choice.
I don't think we do,
use the whole
Shama.
field and we use the open space. And I'm happy to, and then we will revert back to the open
absolutely.
space if we don't use it.
Max?
I'm happy to hear that.
Max?
After looking at all the alternatives to get the field done on time, it seems that that's the only alternative, so we have no choice to use the open space.
Jeff?
Strictly because of the timeline, I think we don't have a choice but the open space. But I do want to address, a lot of people said, what are we waiting for with the money? And having been on Little League board for years and having been involved in sports a long time in this town, just keep this in the back of your mind. One of the things we keep hearing is there's not enough field space. We always hear that. We all know that. There's not enough, right? So, when we use money from the open space, it's not a lot of money in there to begin with. We know what properties cost here in town, especially if we want one large enough for a field. So next time, when a property becomes available, and we do want to use it, and the money's not there, I do know that people are going to be sitting there saying, why isn't the money there? Why did you use it on something else? We need more fields. Look, we only replenish it at $300,000 a year. Now think about what $300,000 is in property values in Tenafly. That's a drop in the bucket. And so, supporting it, but I do want you to keep in the back of the mind, at some point, a place may become available, and we are going to want to use that. And I can't tell you today when that's going to happen. None of us knew when Green Acres fields up there were going to become available and the town could purchase a large tract, which is really one of the high points of our town, not having that with apartment buildings. So I know there's that, like, use open space, and I get that. But do keep in mind, when we need it for something else, I hope we have it.
Lauren, did you want to add anything? Lauren?
You know, my reservation on using the open space is exactly what Jeff has said. And we hope as a council to not only have municipal field fixed for you, but to develop the rest of our town into usable space as well. So my reservation isn't that I don't want the field to be done, but it's that I have exact same sentiment as Jeff, that I would hate to deplete this fund, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there. We just recently used it for lighting on a field, you know, and I believe that was, you know, maybe not the best use of that fund either. So when I say I want to investigate and look at facts, that's what I'm here to do. Thank you.
I would just like to add that I appreciate the council for making the decision that they made tonight. I would tell you that we are victims of our own inaction, because this has been discussed for 2 years, and if we wanted to capitalize it a year ago, we could have. Now we have the clock working against us. So I also want to thank you for being out here. I know why you came, and although when you got here, you got a sense that maybe your presence wasn't necessary, well, your presence is what made it go so easily. So thank you for joining us, and I think that we're all going to be happy in the end result. And keep in mind, this $200,000 or whatever we're taking out of open space is for a field. It's for a field that really is like 2 or 3 real fields. So it's not like we're throwing money away, and we're determined that should we have an opportunity to buy more field space, we'll be ready. Thank you. We're going to take a 2-minute break, and just in case we do have something unimportant like the budget coming up next, you might find that interesting, but thank you for coming. 2-minute break. Okay, we have our auditor and our CFO here for backup. Jewel, the 2018 budget, you want to explain exactly where we are? I know we're going to...
Before we do so, Mayor, I talked to Lizette. This is basically as a result of asking to have a 0 increase in taxes. And before we do that, I would like to be able to talk to the council to make that determination.
Well, hold on. That's not here now. Okay.
Well,
that's not here now. You can talk about that under new business.
Please ask the clerk, because we discussed that.
You asked, what are we going to do now?
The reason why the 2018 budget is listed is because Max had asked to bring forth the resolution for a 0% increase. And to facilitate that discussion, you have to talk about the whole budget. So that's the first piece of the discussion. And then the rest would be where the budget is. Where it's
Yeah, so first thing of the discussion, I'd like to bring the issue of the 0 increase in budget. I would ask the council if they agree with me that we create a resolution and ask the CFO and the auditor to work on a 0 tax increase resolution as such that the Tenafly residents will not see in 2018 any increases in the taxes.
Well, they will, because there's a school budget.
We're talking the municipal budget. This is municipal
Okay,
portion.
but before you go forward on that, the CFO and the administrator and the department heads have worked very hard, and the first draft of the budget comes in, according to what's in my book, at 2.5%.
Yeah, at that time.
That's before we look at it.
That's
Yeah.
not the budget.
No.
That was the forecast.
No, that's a forecast. And the whole idea
Every
is,
year we get a forecast, and we utilize that as a guidance and a foundation to look ahead.
Correct. We use it as a tool when we develop the current.
but
Correct.
the CFO and the auditors are not the ones that they create the policies. It is the council and mayor that create the policy.
Yeah, but before you create a policy, Max, it would be very helpful if you understood the process, but you don't.
No,
And-
you are wrong. You are completely wrong. First of all, it's now it's basically, we have to give them a guidance.
Well, you did. You told them zero.
No, but we have to have the council agree to that, and they have to come back and say, we tried to do, and here's the result.
Well, you just said "we," so I assume the council, at least the three people.
Well, let's talk.
that you talked
Let's
to.
allow the council to speak about that.
But wait a second, don't we discuss the budget? We shouldn't be discussing the budget here tonight, Max. We discuss it when budget hearings are coming up.
No,
Max,
Max,
that's when we do this.
You're completely wrong.
Of course we want zero, Max, of course. What fool would not want zero?
Okay, good. Thank you so much for being a fool.
Come on.
Now, allow the council to discuss it. You're not going to take away...
Discuss what, Max?
How much they want to have the actual CFO create the budget for.
So you want the CFO to make the cuts without your consent?
Absolutely, they should work towards what the council decides that there should be the budget, and then they come back to us when it's not that we are to change, the $40,000 for paper is too much, we should put only, that's not our role is to create the policy.
So the concept of the hearings, Mac, that we do Saturdays, is the departments come in, they present to us their budget, and we then critique it and decide yes, no, the whole process,
Tony,
Max.
if you...
We're doing that for years.
Well, you know what?
We come to the game later. That's what
There
we
is
do.
no harm and probably a good deal of political value to say we want a 0% increase. Actually, I'd like a minus 2% increase myself, so I go one better than you. However, the process is what the process is. You want to give them a resolution saying we'd like a 0% increase. I have no problem with that. I don't think anybody has a problem with it. The value of it is zero, come to think of it.
Once we pass the resolution, they have an obligation to basically create the budget to meet the council resolution. We create the policies, they basically...
So what do you want them to do? First of all, we don't even have the sewer charges yet. So how can you put together a budget?
It's the same way they put together a budget with or without the sewers that is presented to us.
But they don't present. It's basically fiscally impossible to come up with a 0% budget at this
We'll see
particular
that
point.
if it's possible.
But there's a forecast budget here, Mayor.
Yeah.
Which is a 2.5% increase.
Right.
Couldn't that have been a 0%?
We should basically...
Well, what you're basically saying is her knife wasn't sharp enough.
Yes.
Now, what about our knives?
Our knives should be the same.
You know, Sharma, you've been doing this a long time.
I just asked you a question. Couldn't that have been 0?
No.
Why? Why are you saying that it couldn't be 0?
Because if it could have been 0, they would have done it. The real problem here, Sharma, is the level of trust is 0.
Right.
Neither you nor Max, and I'm worried about the two new people, have any trust in our professionals.
It's not a question of
It
trust,
is. Well, then
Mayor.
you're
It's
saying...
a question of our responsibility to watch every line item on this budget. It's not a question of trust at all.
It is.
I'm sorry, it's not. I'm sorry.
But Shama,
to
that's
feel
why we
that
bring
way.
Shama, you've been doing this a long time. That's why we bring in the departments. We review line by line by line. And
But why don't they bring in a budget with a 0% increase?
What, each department?
Yes.
That's what's impossible. Keep in mind that a forecast, and we get a forecast every year, as our auditor indicated, it's a tool. We didn't bring you a budget of 2.5% last year. We have no intent of bringing you a budget of 2.5 this year. What this does is this looks at where we were as of 2017. All things considered, if we did not take any additional actions to reduce, specifically to reduce the cost, this is exactly what the same amount of activity would cost us in 2018 It doesn't mean that we're going to automatically accept that and just turn in a budget that's 2.5%. Quite frankly, in my 8.5 years here, we have never turned in a budget that was over cap. Before we had a tax levy cap, we also had an appropriations cap. Our budgets are always under cap. We don't intend to do anything differently this year in that regard.
And I would love the auditor to get up and tell us the danger of going, I hate to use this term because I don't like my tax bill any more than anybody else. What's the danger of just making a point of coming in at 0%? Where does that leave us next year?
Well, I think I just want to back up a little bit because I think it's a process, and I think that everybody, if you're new here, maybe you know or don't know, but it's certainly a process, and the process is really just getting started. And what's happening at that level is that you have the departments now are putting together their requests, right? Those requests are being summarized by the CFO. The CFO is going through that process. The other side that nobody's really seeing is the financial statements from 2017. Susan is still in the process of closing out 2017. So although we focus, and everybody does focus on the appropriation side, which you have to, there's also the flip side is the revenue side. So we have no idea what happened with the surplus and the realized revenues, because that's not going to happen until the financial statements are closed out. So it is a long process, but I think that kind of what I'm hearing here is that, if there's a goal, I mean, I think everyone has a goal, and yeah. Most people would say I'd like to see no increase as a goal, but I think trying to mandate something that is in its infancy stages is really not a practical thing to do.
So you suggest that we basically ask you your goal to be 0?
Well, I think your goal as a governing body
Yes.
would be to pass a 0 budget. I think what you have to wait is let the process work through. And let the process be the process coming through in your weekly meetings, going through the appropriation side. Once the financial statements are closed out, give us the ability to take a look at the documents that the department heads and you as a governing body said, we approve these appropriations. And there's a lot of moving parts, and you're not going to know the end result until everything gets put together and compiled, and then we come back to you in another meeting, and then we say, here, this is what it looks like at this initial point, and where are we? And I don't know where we're going to be. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I don't have the ability to tell you where it's going to be.
I like the idea of giving a goal of a zero tax increase, and I'm sure that everybody agrees. So we will create a resolution to the effect that our goal is going to be
That's
zero
fine,
tax
Max.
increase.
What you just said is fine. Our goal is 0%, but you don't require anything of this nature because, to be honest with you, and Mark, you were here for 6 years. We start the budget process, and we end up increasing the budget every year.
That's a different time.
It's a different time?
Absolutely.
I want to see you cut when you have the opportunity to cut.
You guys see today, with the fact that all the taxpayers in New Jersey are going to have a huge tax increase, it's a completely different world. We're not going to have any expenses that we're not going to control and change. It's gone, because you know how much our taxes are going to go up, and we are responsible for that. So yes, we will write a resolution. We'll present it to the
How
council.
are we responsible for that? I'm not responsible.
No, we are
for taxes.
responsible for the taxes in town.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Make sure you clarify that.
Okay.
So I would, to move this discussion along, I would recommend to the council, if they're so inclined, to suggest a goal, a resolution, asking our professionals. Tony, I want to get this done. All right, there's a few people that want it. Let's have a goal of a 0% increase in our budget. It's an admirable goal. I support it. And
Non-binding, thank you.
When we start our budget process, it's going to be very difficult for all 7 of us to keep toe to the line, because you're going to have things in your committees, you're going to have things in your committees that you want to do. And you know something? Our pencils are never as sharp as hers and hers.
Well, as long as they come up with a zero basically increase, if we are going to be the one that we're going to bust the budget, shame on us. But let's see that zero budget increase, and then we shame on us if we do any increases that are over there. So yes, we're going to put together a resolution asking basically for
A goal.
and
You put a resolution together stating that our goal is to have a 0% increase in our budget.
in our tax increase.
Tax
Your
increase.
tax increase. Yeah.
Municipal, yes.
Yeah, municipal tax.
Why can't we tell the schools to do the same thing? you know?
Well, that's I think that they should be as responsible as we're going to be.
Well, I wouldn't toot our horn until we have the final product. Let's move on.
Before we move on, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just, having worked many years, I know I've said this to you in private, New York City is very different than a municipality. I get that. But the way it did help the mayor and council of the state of New York is that each agency was told as the budget process was unfolding, if you're going to increase one place, where you're going to cut. And that way, the agencies or departments came in with budgets that were basically without increase and then with a wish list.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that those were the instructions our administrator gave every department head.
So
Come in zero.
that will be...
I'm not sure that everyone was able to do that, but those were the instructions.
All right, so that, I think, is the idea
And we will
behind the
have
resolution, is that not just that it's our goal, but that, I'm glad to hear that the instructions are being given, but that those goals will be communicated.
Yeah, and you will have the same difficulty when we get our budget, trying to keep it at zero. We will struggle just like the department had struggled. We have the final say, the seven of us, so that's good. Let's go on to Eresco. Paul.
Pre-tax payments.
No, we got plenty of time. It's only 9:30.
Just one other point, and it really started from the original email and communication about a zero-based budgeting and going through that process.
Yeah.
And to the councilman's point, and absolutely yes, in the bigger entities, it's certainly, because you're doing zero-based by department almost, and you could do that. But what's happened, and I kind of just took a quick look at your budget today before I came, and I said, okay, let me look at this and see what the flexibility is, and just to give you an idea globally. So I'll use round numbers. We're roughly 30 million, 29 and...
Yeah, 29 something.
$30 million. And then I said to myself, okay, let's look at this and carve out all the items in the budget that are really, I'm going to almost say non-discretionary, because we're really getting bills on the state pension, the utilities authorities, all these other
Contractual
aspects.
obligations with the salaries.
And I kind of lumped in salaries and wages in here, because, I think at the end of the day, you probably could lay some people off if you had to, but, for the most part, you're really almost looking at salaries and wages from a zero-based budget perspective, right? Well, contractual. So when I take that out, insurance, there's no flexibility in insurance. You have to have an auditor, have to have legal, and all the rest of the professional fees. Not much room there. Garbage is contractual. Utilities are non-discretionary. They're what we're paying. The BCUA for the sewage disposal. Tax appeals every year. I don't know if there's much discretion there. We have a LoSAP program. We pay 1.3, almost 1.4 million to the library. No flexibility. Capital, we only put in 150 to fund capital. There is some flexibility there. Debt service, $3 million a year. No flexibility in that stuff. Reserve fund collected, 1.6 million. Really no flexibility. Fire hydrant service, solid waste for tipping fees. And then you have the FICA and the pension bills that we get, $2.3 million. So really out of my $30 million, I'm down to less than $2 million. And that's looking at every other O&E line item then, and that's, you're talking about police O&E, municipal court, everything I didn't mention. So, the flexibility side, is there flexibility? Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it may not be as large as people may, think, because I'm looking at 30 million and say, well, I got to be able to cut because it's such a large number.
No, it's
But I just went
about
through and I backed out
10%.
over
Usually that's what it is.
About 20%.
Yeah,
10%
usually that's
usually.
what it is.
The question becomes, do we have enough flexibility to compensate for the fixed costs that are rising?
Well, see, that's the point.
That's the point.
We're not going to know the answer. So to go back and kind of full circle here, we were talking about getting zeros from all the department heads and mandating that. Well, that's what I'm talking about in part of your 2.8 million or $2 million, right? That's where you're going to get your zeros. But all the other stuff that's not contractual, that's out of your hand, like the pension numbers, they're up about $150,000.
Yeah, we understand that.
When the
We
BCUA
understand
bills
there are
so
fixed
we have to
costs
wait until we
and
look
variable
at
costs.
the entire picture
and then I think then that's when you add your input. So we're going to give you all the statutory numbers, and everything else is going to be mandated, and you're going to have your other only line items. But then at that point, you can look and say, well, where is the flexibility if you really wanted to take it from a 1% down to a 0? And that's, again, and that's a policy decision at that point. That's not
Exactly.
it's not a financial or an accounting decision.
It's a policy decision.
Absolutely.
That's
It's
what
always a
we,
policy
exactly, that's why we say this is going to be our policy.
Right, but we will inform you at that point,
Yeah.
are there ramifications? That's why we do a surplus projection. So
As-
this way, when
as-
you look at what we think 18 is going to be, we're going to give you a snapshot of what we think 19 could be. And that's just a tool.
As Mr. Grossman told you that I did budgets for 30 years. If I tell people, do a budget for 2%, they come up with 2%. Tell them 3%, 1%, so policy is important, and that's what we are. Sure.
All right, we have a lot of
Thank
experts
you.
here, so you-
I just wanted to say that, you know, the departments did do a really good job, but there was some savings in salary and wages.
Yes.
We had higher cost employees that left, and there was
Lower,
attrition.
new,
We
higher.
replaced them with lower paid employees. But also, you said PERS and PFRS, that was 180,000. And when Jewel and I went to first look at this budget, looking at it, it's looking really good as compared to last year. We're right off the bat, last year, we had to reduce at least $500,000. We're looking at a much better position this year.
Yeah, good, very good.
The goal is fine.
Thank you.
You and Jewel are doing an excellent job. I know how hard you work. Okay, Administrator, Eresco Park, is somebody here for Eresco Park?
Pre-tax payments first.
Oh, pre-tax payments.
And then-
Oh, I'm
and then
sorry.
Eresco Park.
Let's do Eresco Park first. The guy's been here a long time.
Okay.
All right? Come on up.
No, I have.
Mr. Confair has some handouts. This is Ed Confair, and he is the project manager.
Give me all of them, I'll pass them down.
All right. There's a couple of black and whites mixed in there, but I think there's enough colors that if you go everyone can see the color drawings as well. We've got large scale up here. So my name is Ed Confair with Engineering and Land Planning Associates. I'm a landscape architect and civil engineer. We're under contract to look at design improvements for Eresco Park. We've been working with Jewel and members of the Historic Preservation Committee to site and develop additional park improvements around a monument for Sergeant Nicholas Eresco, who's a Medal of Honor winner. You can see the monument feature that's been chosen on the last page of the packet you have in front of you. And so we've had a kickoff meeting, a subsequent meeting where we looked at a large number of design alternatives, and we whittled that down to 3 alternatives that everyone thought was the most promising. And the first page, what you had is just some of the key directives we developed as a group in talking about how to come up with this scheme. We wanted it to be quiet. We didn't want to add elements of active recreation to the park. Wanted to keep it passive. Wanted to feature the monument itself prominently in a space that was large enough to have gathering around it. And then we also thought it would be a great additional goal if there could be additional offshoot, we were calling them rooms, elsewhere in the park to allow for further passive gathering, book reading clubs, kids passing through wanting to hang out, and allow a spot for traffic and people to congregate that wasn't directly next to the monument. So there could be multiple user groups in the park at one time. So looking at the 3 schemes, so my goal today is that this is our presentation to you, and to whittle these 3 down to 1. The subsequent phases from here are schematic development phase, design development package, and then final construction documents so that the project can go out to bid with a projection of starting construction this fall.
Does the HPC have a recommendation of the 3? Have you?
No,
Have they seen this yet?
They have seen these three, so they approved these three as all being viable.
Yeah, we started with 8, and our committee includes 3 members of the HPC.
Well, I don't know how the council feels about this. Jeff, you're the liaison. I would like to get a recommendation from, I mean, all 3 of these look fine. I think it would be very helpful for us if the HPC gave us a recommendation as to which of the 3, unless any of you feel that strongly about one of them.
I have a question about, generally about all 3. Are there a lot of trees going to be cut?
No trees are
No trees.
Are we going to plant any trees?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, June, correct me if I'm wrong, there was an accident and a flowering tree was removed from there. I think it was one of those police chases. Was that in this spot?
No, that was on County Road, I think.
Yeah. County Road? You show that flowering horse chestnut, which I heard about.
I don't think, I know there wasn't anything removed from this
Red
part.
flowering horse chestnut.
I wouldn't know it if it tapped me on the shoulder, but I've never seen any tree removed as a result of an accident.
Then I'm mistaken about the plot.
The question that I have is, all these concepts are green. I see Carl is here. One of the things that bugs me, I don't know if you've seen the Roosevelt Monument, is our inability seemingly to maintain a lawn around that monument. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault, there's a lot of shade and a lot of traffic. Are you confident, and Carl, would you be confident that when we're finished with this project, we'll have a lawn here? Because I think that,
Having a lawn, is that the idea to prove?
well, we're in between the trees. Hyler Park is green. This area, there's a lot of tree, a lot of roots, and I would love to see, once this is done, besides the improvements, I'd like to see a lawn.
Part of our specifications will be working to provide a spec that is shade tolerant. That's the big issue from my discussions with everyone, is that it's just, I think the grass species that are out there are just very difficult, given all the mature canopy cover, to maintain. So we're going to come up with recommendations and a specification that will be part of the bid package on what to seed that with going forward, to give it a better chance.
So you'll work with our Parks Department where that's concerned, to make sure, because they're the ones that are going to have to maintain it. To make sure that whatever is put there is something you can work with and you believe will have a good chance of success?
Yeah, Carl is on the committee also.
Yeah, these were discussions that were my concerns, and these were discussions that we had to make it low maintenance.
Low maintenance and easily replaceable if you were to lose the plants, so it's something native and you can replace it.
Yes, all the plants will be native. It's all low, easy to maintain shrubs or ground covers, where we're proposing the majority of the budget is really allocated for the seating areas, the monument itself, and creating a space around it.
What is the DG part?
So DG stands for decomposed granite. We're looking at cost-saving options, and so a strategy we were discussing is concrete pavers in and around the monument itself, very durable, but if we were to do all the pathways in concrete pavers, it wouldn't fit within the budget we have for the project. So decomposed granite that's stabilized in place is still ADA accessible. It's still a higher end, nicer look than just putting poured concrete through the lot, and it's better than just the gravel that's out there now.
Does it feel like the gravel though?
It's locked in place. It has a grit to it. It has a texture, but it'll be stabilized in place.
So it's not pavers?
Pavers around the monument. That's sort of the textured area you see on the various schemes, but the actual pathways we're proposing would be decomposed granite.
I have a few questions, please. The 3 presentations that you have over here have quite a different approach. The first one, is basically a view from the street where you can see the monument, or the monument is secondary, or so, basically having a closed view of the monument from the street because of the new planting. It's basically a hidden type of a monument. It's not an open space type. The second one, it's the opposite. The second one is like an open view and see the monument plus you have some planting to the right. So it's basically an openness from the street going, okay. And the third one is exactly the same, but much simpler. All right.
Correct.
When you did those three designs, you probably had something in mind.
Yes.
What is your view of the way that things should be done for this type of park?
Sure. But so you're right. So my personal preference is I like when the monument is featured in the center of the spaces here.
So 2 and 3.
Facing the pathway. So when you're on the main path, you see it, and that's how you see it. Just in discussions.
Which is the concept number?
It's 2 and 3, yeah?
2 and 3, right, when it's featured in the center. And we've talked about ways to modify the monument design that the Historic Commission's developed to date to put another feature on the back side of it, so there's not just a blank back to the monument if it is featured in the center.
Okay.
But we did want to present a option where it's anchored on one edge, part of a
Okay,
vegetative
so let me
plant bed
get through
for
that, the
discussion.
questions. In the first one, you have a high, practically planting in front of the monument. The other ones have sort of a low profile, probably some sort of a shrubs or something like that.
Yep.
How high is the monument? How high are the shrubs? Are we gonna, that's the, so
Sure.
the.
So if you look at the last page, there's measurements of the
Okay.
monument. So it's about shoulder height, and a couple feet wide.
Okay.
You'll see there's a silhouette of a person.
All right,
next
so
to
it's
it.
50 inches, the monument, okay, it's practically, let's say, about 22 inches to the monument. And at 50 inches, what will be the angle that you have to have from the street for this, whatever, bushes, so you don't obstruct the view?
Well, I'm not picturing the bushes as anything taller than 2 to 3 feet, so.
Even the 2, 3, okay,
So
I
I don't
got you.
think there'd be any obstruction
So
from
you
a
can see the
typical-
monument from the street,
All right.
and it will be facing this way,
All right.
right?
And this new planting that you
Yes.
have to the right of it, what would you envision to have there?
To the planting?
Yeah, it says new planting and you got
Yeah,
the,
so I'm picturing that on Tenafly Road, if we were gonna add small understory trees like redbuds or cherries or dogwoods, those would be the locations. It's where you get a break in the existing tree canopy, so they actually get some sunlight. Since they're flowering trees, especially early in spring, I kind of view those as sort of marking the appropriate entries into the park. And then below them would be herbaceous perennials, things that are shade tolerant, different types of grasses, and shrubs.
all green.
Yeah, it'll be a mulch plant bed.
That's right, okay, thank you.
So from the view from the street, we have, on most of them, very few trees blocking, but is there any opportunity to put, flowering bushes, shade tolerant, hydrangeas, something that would
Yes.
be, at least from the view from the street, that would make it, spring, summer, colorful, thank you,
Yeah.
that's the word I need.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much dense wood in the center that it almost doesn't tell you, come take a walk down a path, but I feel like if we put a little bit more gardening or beautification to it.
Yeah, it'll be a strict balance of what we can maintain, what we can afford, and just as a landscape architect, I want to get as many plants in the plan as possible. It'll be balancing that with the actual pathway improvements to bring everything up to code and make it as safe as possible to walk across the site.
Can I make a small suggestion?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when people are at the basketball courts, and in the summer, spring, late fall, it gets really packed. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of more seating on closer to the courts rather than the other side. Well, both sides would be utilized. Something more on the right side, basically. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but something more where people coming from the courts have a reason to go, wait or for their ride, whatever it is. Almost, so it's flowing, so it flows from one end to the other end.
Yeah, we can look at additional seating or how to orient that right side more towards the court. Yeah.
So there was some discussion, because the HPC looked at this, and there was some discussion about sort of a hybrid view of the straight paths with the round.
Yep,
Is
yeah,
that-
that's option 3. Option 3 is sort of a hybridized version plus removing sort of the western room to just see what sort of the most reduced, simplest option would be. So that's where that's going. And I would just say at this point, I mean, the whole point of it being conceptual is that there still can be further hybridization or pulling from something into another as we're rolling into the next phases. So it's still early going and nothing's set in stone. But yes.
Literally set in stone.
Correct. Yeah.
No, but Mr. Mayor, you asked before, as liaison, that was one of the things that the Historic Preservation Commission was looking at, was a combination, a hybrid, the straight paths with the round monuments.
Jewel, what's the time, but when would you like a final decision on where we're going with this?
Well, the schedule was to have it tonight.
Can I ask?
To be honest with you, I'm taken aback with the fact that you're talking about having this done in the fall, because we were promised that this would be done for Memorial Day. So I guess that's out the window.
Next Memorial Day.
Yeah, okay, here we go again. What are you doing for lighting?
Lighting is not part of the scope.
No, listen, we cannot have this plaque just standing there and not lit during the evenings. Absolutely not.
We're having accent lighting.
No, it's gotta be a little bit more than accent. I mean, this is,
Basically,
it's the
he
Medal
wants to
of
make
Honor
it as a proeminent lighting at night.
Well, do we have a flag here?
Well, no, that's,
We should definitely show.
that was the next thing I was gonna ask. What are we doing about an American flag?
But Councilman, one of the discussions at the HPC as well was they were kicking around, these are all just what they were kicking around, so nothing set in stone, as we say. They were kicking around the idea of maybe around some of this, since there's a two-room concept here, sponsored bricks to pay for the lighting, because the lighting really wasn't in the consideration.
I think that's
Don't
good.
don't look at me.
This is not Geisinger Field where we have,
But you can
we gotta
have,
respect this.
but you can have respectful. I mean, if you look at monuments all through Washington, which are highly respectful, have a lot of different interesting elements, up to and including, most people don't know this, but the World War II Memorial, which is one of the most amazing, I don't know if you've ever seen it, there's actually hidden in there a Kilroy. There's a Kilroy. If anybody knows World War II history, Kilroy was one of the key figures of it, and there's a sketched Kilroy in there, which is respectful but whimsical. So people, especially if they're veterans, taking out bricks might not be so bad that they are veterans.
So the lighting was not part of this project?
Correct.
A lighting design, electrical design, engineering was not part of the public RFP that was issued that we responded to. We have discussed it. I'm not a lighting designer. We don't have a lighting designer on our team. And the budget, it's a $100,000 grant you guys have to work with. Lighting will evaporate it very quickly.
Correct.
And just, so the projections for the three schemes you see here, even the third one, which is sort of a reduced scheme, is just below that budget, and actually the other two are a little over it right now, so they can still work, but we have to find room to even cut from what you see.
I'm going to suggest we approve 3, and Jewel, I think what we ought to do is apply for a grant for some lighting from Bergen County, that's open space, recreation, and historic, right?
And we could do that.
And that's what I was going to ask, this $100K grant that we have now, where's that from?
Open space.
That's from Tenafly Open Space?
We agreed to open space
Yeah.
for the park. Park, it's a real park, so.
So, have we set that aside at this
Yes.
point?
Oh, yeah, it's appropriated.
It's a long
Okay.
time ago.
The
So-
issue that we have is none of those projects have asked for a matching grant, and we have to step up to the point that we have to have a matching grant. Right is something that, because we're losing a ton of possibility.
I mean, we're with the tennis court addition, now we're at 450 in open space use.
Yeah, that's becoming, and 600,000 for the Pfister Pond, which is part of that.
There's $1 million.
Yeah, I mean,
There's $1 million.
it's outrageous.
Hold on, before we go any further. Susan, the balance you gave us was 1.8 million.
That's after this is.
That's after 600,000 of it.
Thank you.
Susan? That's after 600,000 was moved out.
Yes.
So if we don't spend that 600,000, we've really got a balance of 2.4.
And we're not gonna spend the
Well, that's fine, but I'm just trying to get a sense of where we stand with this. The $100,000 for this is not included in the 1.8, correct? It's already...
It's already been appropriated.
Yeah, it's already allocated.
Right, so we've got 1.8, the 100 is going to be spent, we're all agreed that we're going to do this
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, that's
The
done.
majority of that 600,000 will probably end up going back into the open space fund, so we're going to end up pretty much with a $250,000.
But we're gonna spend 200,000 for the.
Can I go back to this? I have a question.
Yes,
The
please.
seating, is it like benches or something? What do you
It's
envision?
gonna be a combination, we're picturing stone benches that would match the stone monument in and around that. And then more traditional wood benches out in the
Couldn't
periphery
that
of
be
the park.
something which people could donate a bench in memory of somebody, and that could be a source of some funding?
Yeah,
You know, I
we
see
do
that
that all
everywhere.
of the time, we're
Yeah.
continually getting, but I think this is a starting point.
Yeah.
And if people want to
And I
add
think the
benches...
simple one path, I think, is nice. You don't disturb too much of the...
I think perhaps what we could do, Ed, is we could identify locations above and beyond the final plan where possible other benches, because you
Yes.
still want it to be part of an overall
Yeah,
plan.
yeah, and we've talked about ways in the final documentation to incorporate things that are not gonna be paid for as part of this, but we
Correct.
want to know where they are, so you guys
Including
have.
lighting.
Right,
Right.
including the lighting.
Well, I think that we have to put lighting. I'm not asking it to be a football field, but I am asking that we have to have a light shine on Sergeant Eresco at all times.
Maybe
We also have to have an American flag right next to where the monument is. We have to,
Okay.
because...
So you want to add a flagpole?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be a
should
very
not
good
be
idea.
very
I agree.
expensive. This should
Yeah.
be...
No, we're not.
Yeah.
How tall are you thinking? I mean, a standard flagpole will be right up where, like, the whole site is covered with dense tree canopy.
But, certainly, we don't want it high enough where it's going to be intruded by the trees, but we want it respectful enough where it can be seen, and, and then you're also talking a light on the American flag as well. But we could put the solar light on top, actually, not even cost us anything.
One light and it comes down.
Right. Yep. I just think it's a respectful way of doing it. Now,
I like
who did the language of the plaque?
The HPC.
The HPC is working.
I've been told it's been heavily vetted.
Another part? That's,
Yes. In fact, the HPC did a presentation for the council,
Yeah, but this is.
and that was the issue.
We discussed that,
Yeah.
we discussed that in length.
When we initially began discussing the monument, we already had a concept for it, and the HPC had already put together language. And then, as you recall, it was decided that the park didn't do the monument justice. And that's why we were given an appropriation, but we weren't given like a large allocation based on a plan. So we're backing into the amount of money that we have available, but we want to make sure that it's a complete project. And as we said, we can continue to request grants for that's what we've been doing with all of our parks effectively.
Dan?
To add on to that bench and the paper donation thing, Carl, is there any place for what the environmental committee talked about, where people can buy and donate trees? You think in the near future?
We have a lot of trees. In fact, that's, we almost have too many trees.
Just one?
I'm not sure if we really need
Yeah,
more
the issue is
trees.
planting I think there's room for
Small one?
Yeah, there's room for 4 to 6 maybe at the perimeter.
Right, but not in the...
Right, understory size trees, nothing that'll get bigger than 20 feet
There
tall or
are.
wide.
Can I say something too?
Yes.
I like 3, but it's a question about having a secondary path. This way, right now, this is basically inaccessible territory, and it does not allow us to have a full access of
Well,
the
that's why I
entire.
like number 2.
Yeah, I agree with that, at least from that point of view. You want to be able to have access to the
He
entire
said
park.
2 is above the budget.
Two is the most expensive, and it's,
We should be able to bring it in.
it's almost,
Advertising.
just so you know, it's almost It's over 30,000 over
No, we don't want to
budget.
do
Yeah, but putting an extra path on the third, it shouldn't be very expensive.
Well, it's enough to put you over budget.
It's the same distance. It's, the distance doesn't change.
Even way, we cannot have a park that is inaccessible.
I wish you were at my house today when I got the plumber.
Yeah, no, but it's, you cannot have, this becomes inaccessible. What, people should be able.
Well, we agree. I mean, it was just that one of the concepts, and
Yeah.
as he said, he has an obligation to work within the amounts that we've contracted
We go
for.
above budget then.
But we will work with, we know we want an additional path, we know
Right.
that we prefer concept number 2, so we'll have to look at the cost
We'll look
for
at-
the various
I mean,
materials.
a question would be, do
Yeah.
you want the path, the secondary path to Tenafly at the expense of something near the basketball courts? Those are the prioritization conversations that I think
Which-
we're gonna need to this next phase.
But there is no question that we cannot have the park inaccessible, a whole, area. Should have it, because there are the activities we have in the park. If we don't have the secondary trip, we have like the Woofstock and.
No, that's that's not going to happen in here anymore.
The Woofs are not gonna be here no more.
No, first of all, Wolfstock may not come back again anyway, but if it does, hopefully we'll have a
Either way,
dog
you
park
want to
up
be
in
able to go around the park. You
But
can. Yes, please.
Well, number
Option
2
three-
has 2 quiet nooks.
Yes,
If necessary,
we can eliminate.
we can eliminate one of them under the premise that at some point in the future, we can apply for another grant, do another nook and some lighting.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I mean, you'll have a standardized set of details from this that you can repeat.
So bring it under budget, use number 2, but take out the nook on the right, and,
And the new plantings also. If you go back, if you look at, hybridized 2 and 3 actually.
do what you have to do to bring it in at budget. And
another path.
we can have the intent of going back out for another grant to improve the lighting, create another nook if that's what we want to do.
But Peter, let's be realistic here, please. You know as well as I do, that if we don't do this the right way the first time, we're not gonna do the lighting, we're not gonna do the flag, because
No,
it's just gonna go to the wayside.
We're gonna do
And
the
now you're gonna
flag.
start digging this place up again.
We're gonna do the flag. We're gonna do
Listen,
the flag.
Do it, just do it once and be done with it. Let's move on.
Yeah, include the flag and some lighting where the flag and the monument is. I mean, ideally, I'd like to see some very, very low-level lighting on the paths, but that's something we can do
And
next
keep in
time.
mind, over the past 5 years, we've made additions and improvements to all of our parks.
Yeah, with grants.
So we'll do that.
So can I add something here, because I do use this area actually. When I walk into town with my family and my children, we let them run around this area in Eresco Park, this little way. It's a green space in town, it's one of the few as you walk through town. And if we do pass throughout the entire thing, you do lose that more of a green element. And I like my children to be able to run in a little bit of grass there, and I would hate to lose all of that as well. I'm not against putting maybe a bench or 2 in that area for more sitting or quiet space, because we will now have this beautiful monument in the center. It will be more attractive, but I also want to realize that the town uses it for other things, and as Dan said, the basketball courts are there, and families are there, and they use this spot. I've seen kids kicking a soccer ball here, I've seen them throwing a ball here, and
Well,
I just want to keep that in mind.
I would tell you this, okay? The concept from day one has been this will be a passive park, okay?
Okay.
Similar to Davis Johnson Park. Now, at Davis Johnson Park, there are times when kids kick soccer balls around and run around a little bit, but there's no organized games, no organized sports there.
I'm not looking
There
for
aren't going to
organized.
be any activities like Woofstock in this park.
Correct.
It's going to be a passive park with the proper respect shown to Sergeant Eresco. That's the theme of the park. That doesn't mean that kids can't run around in the grassy areas. So, but we'll keep this in mind that, once again, the concept is a passive park. Put a flagpole in there, put some lighting around the flag and the monument, and let's bring it in for whatever our budget is. And then, phase 2, if we want to do some improvements, we'll apply for another grant.
Okay.
Which I'm sure will be forthcoming, with all the influence Councilman Park has with the county.
He's personally going to do that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ed.
All right.
All right, now we are going to
Update on prepaid tax.
Tax payments.
Where is my money?
Now that's open space.
I don't want you giving Councilman Bash his money back, whatever you're gonna
I don't mean
Never.
it's expensive money.
We'll double it
You know,
for
the
him.
space sometimes
Okay, so
goes by.
recap of the memo, because I don't know if you all had the opportunity to read it.
Yeah.
But basically, we took in,
I don't mind having
December alone, $16.8 million in prepaid taxes. In total, we took in $17.4 million in prepaid taxes
You
for
have now
18
this one.
and 17. And of that amount, $16.8 million was collected in December alone. So that equated to 1,000 taxpayers that paid, prepaid in 17, 20%. With that being said, I was waiting for some guidance from the state. They finally provided it as to what to do, going forward. Can we give refunds? Can we not give do we not give refunds? And they provided some guidance, and basically it's up to the local unit, the local municipalities, but they would like a resolution adopted authorizing the refund of such payments as a matter of policy. So if we decide to move forward with refund, we should adopt a resolution at the next governing body meeting. And each taxpayer that requests a refund should do so in writing.
Not should.
Must.
Paul, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I do. Susan and I spoke about
Yeah.
it today. I think this is the approach that the division wants everyone to take. It was in a local finance notice, just because of the sheer numbers of the influx here. And the real distinction is of course, anybody who's been following this, you have a tax bill for your first and second. You don't have a tax bill for third and fourth.
Right.
And so right now, the thought process from the IRS is that, prepaid, yeah, sure, 1 and 2 because you have a bill, third and fourth, well, it's not an actual tax bill. So that's why you're seeing this big influx and people that are going to want their money back. We did a little research today too, just to go through the next step, because Susan's going to talk about, the other part of it is that you need to have it in writing, a request. Do the resolution when you award the overpayment refunds. Do it by resolution. But the real question, and for us, because we start digging into the weeds a little bit, because that's what we do you have to have a 1099? And so short answer is we're not quite positive at this point. We did a little research on it, and we looked up the definitions of a 1099-G and a 1099 miscellaneous to see whether or not this is somewhere in the IRS's definition. It's not.
Right, well, you think about this. If we're talking about the third and fourth quarter taxes only.
Third and fourth, yeah.
So since those taxes, we know now that the position of the IRS is that those taxes are not deductible, and the prepayment's not deductible.
That's our thinking, right.
There really wouldn't be a need to
Exactly.
issue a 1099, because legally, the taxpayer should not have deducted
Yeah, it's right. It's just like an overpayment. It's not a refund of a prior taxes. But so our suggestion would be, because what could happen down the road is that you could get the IRS to come through and give an interpretation or modify the rules, saying that now this is going to be a new definition that's going to require a 1099-G, right? What you could do, and we talked about it with Susan, I think we're going to do with all the other clients, is that when we actually have the refund and the taxpayer sends us their letter for requesting a refund, have them fill out a W-9. And a W-9 will give us the information that if at some point in time, and it could be a year from now, that the IRS changes its regulations and rules, we have the ability to do the 1099s. If we never request a W-9s, which is an information form, we'll never be able to figure out what to do, because you're not going to be able to get Social Security numbers and all the information that you require. So
W-9 is good.
that's kind of like a compromise.
This should be part of the resolution?
No.
No, that you require a
I don't know that it needs to be. I
W-9
think,
Yeah, I think that should be.
Well,
I think when they request it in writing, we could respond and tell them that they need
Yeah.
a W-9 is required.
Your resolution will simply have their block and lot.
Right.
and their name and the amount that you're going to
Do we
refund.
have to do a
That's it.
resolution for every refund?
That's what they're saying, suggesting.
No,
yes.
that can't be.
No,
We're
you
gonna
have
have
to.
three.
Well, that's
Well,
what do you mean it can't
well,
be?
my-
But if that's what they tell
Well,
us
what-
we have to do it.
For logic, we have to do every single
Here's a suggestion. You could do one resolution each month
Cover
and list it all down, right?
That's what I would do.
Absolutely.
So maybe on a monthly basis, you do a resolution with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can, Susan, you could do an attachment, or you can modify your resolution and just put the name, block and lot, and the amount, and you're done.
But if in that resolution, we don't request, then they don't have to give it.
The
So,
W-9.
Well,
because
that's not true.
if you don't request it in a legal.
No, because for tax appeal refunds, you know,
But this is not a
it doesn't
tax
say in
appeal.
the law, but we have
Bill,
to send it
Bill,
anyway.
this is not a tax appeal. This is a request for refund taxes.
Well, it's the same thing. You're refunding taxes that were paid.
Whereas a resident had requested in writing a refund and submitted to the finance department a W-9, and then now therefore be it resolved and have the list. You could just put that as a clause that
Yeah.
W-9 has been filed.
Exactly, it has to be in the resolution.
Did you calculate how much we've collected for third and fourth? When you gave that number out,
Almost 4 million.
about 4 million?
Right.
So there's less
331
Yeah.
taxpayers prepaid.
for third and fourth?
Yeah.
Me too. I paid the fourth quarter.
So.
I only did one and
It's a
two.
lot. It's a big amount of taxpayers.
All right, thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for
Yep.
joining us tonight.
Good night.
Next is the budget hearing schedule. No, this is just informational.
We start at February 10th and we end on March.
Based on what you decide, there'll be a resolution to set.
Okay, everybody clear on the budget hearing schedule? We have 4 budget hearings. Actually, one of them is part of a council meeting. So Saturday, February 10th, 9 to 1. Tuesday, February 13th, 7 to 10. Saturday, February 24th, 9 to 1. And then Tuesday, March 6th, we start our council meeting early at 7 o'clock. All right, next is the administrator's report. Yes?
I know, I'm trying to leave.
Oh, fast.
Good.
But I think that everybody should just be aware again, just from a big picture perspective of what's happening at the state level with the new FAST system, okay? So the state of New Jersey is in the and the only reason I'm mentioning this is because you just need to be aware as a governing body that although we are setting a budget schedule, and you have a set right now, preliminary introduction and adoption, it may not happen. And the reason is that we've gone from the old system, which was basically a paper system. So we filed the required documents, submitted it to the state. The state hired an IT company to come and to computerize the entire system, okay? And right now, we are only in the very beginning stages right now of doing the annual debt statements, okay? And that's the most simplest document you could ever imagine. And they're having great difficulties with that. We are now in the very beginning process of going through and doing the annual financial statement, the unaudited financial statements. Again, a pretty simple document, but they're trying to automate the entire process. And my partner is in charge of the RMA, so she's the head of the Registered Municipal Accountants Association. And they had sent letters to the state suggesting that because of all the issues and all the slowdowns and what it's going to cause on every municipality, that we should be able to file the old paper until they get their system up and running, and then at that point, then comply with their computerized system. Personally, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to try to force this as much as they can and reject all paper. So I see this as nothing more than delay after delay after delay, and a tremendous amount of time on administration as well as us.
Does that impact our schedule, really? Can we, are
You guys should just continue as if we're going to meet this schedule, and then when we get to the end, I mean, even if we're all done, and I think what's going to happen here is because I don't have a lot of confidence in their schedules and in their programming, we may actually just keep a hard copy for myself going, the old form, and I think once we have all our data, we have our schedule on March 6th, whatever that date is. Hopefully at that point, Worst case scenario, we're done, we're ready to go. We have to wait for the state, and it might take another month to get that done. But at least then you'll know from a tax side where you are.
Thank you.
So anyway, I'm going to go.
Thank you.
Good night. Take care.
Thanks for that administrator's update.
Okay. I just wanted to, just with respect to the budget hearing schedule, we have a staff meeting tomorrow, so there could possibly be some changes in the time slots. This is the times that everybody was available last year.
You'll give us an amended
update.
schedule
Yeah.
if necessary.
Okay. Well, I thought it was very important that you be aware about the FAST system, but since January 19th, we found out that it doesn't work. So that's what Paul's comments were related to. I think we're really, are we in shock that this is the case? I mean, this was presented and rolled out at the league in a huge conference room. How many people would you say was there? Couple of thousand.
I think it was added last minute to the league schedule.
And I can't believe that they didn't test. And Paul didn't get into the specifics, but what we've been apprised of is that you can put the information into the system, but it doesn't roll up.
The webinar didn't work.
Are you surprised? Healthcare.gov all over
Well,
again.
because the system has already been delayed by 2 years, you would have thought that when they finally made it.
They made it right.
You'll figure out that finally made it doesn't work. That's to be the assumption.
Well, if
Financial disclosure will be done before the
If the governor's race had turned out differently, we would have been working by now.
Okay, so that's the update on FAST. Our message board, I hope you have had the opportunity to see it and enjoy our new color.
I have a question about that. Last 2 days, I happen to have driven in that area at least 3 or 4 times. The message board looks lovely. It wished me a happy new year. And I was thinking, maybe I missed that slot, but maybe we should announce council meetings on it. The council meeting on Sunday.
That's not a bad idea.
Maybe, and if the other boards want, give them the option to announce, because I've seen that in other towns. Planning board
That's a very good
meetings,
idea.
Shade Tree Commission meeting, whatever.
We could have an audience like this every week.
There you go, Mayor. So I thought maybe why not, because we announce all sorts of other things, and the message board is working beautifully.
That's a great idea, really.
So this was my suggestion, seeing it 3 times in a row.
One good idea at a time.
Actually, yeah. This is a good idea. This is a good time as well, because we're not at what we would typically be yet with community requests.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think this next item is interesting.
Oh, the secure Wi-Fi, considering
When we gonna
I will follow up with Bob Caputo. We have no idea as to why we don't have Wi-Fi this evening. The one thing I can say in his favor, he was available, and he actually gave me what he thought might be a temporary solution. But we were so deep into the meeting at that point, and the clerk's office had made the hard copies. What we were previously asking for from them was for secure Wi-Fi, because most of us are on the TBH guest, the
which is
unsecured.
unsecured.
And what he was saying at that time was that we could do it, but they would put the information into people's phones and iPads for them, because the whole idea of it being secure is that they don't give out the IP address. So if you're still interested in pursuing that, first we have to get past the problem that we currently have. But Bob would work in conjunction with Lizette. He thought it would be easier to just have a time where all the devices were done at the same time.
It can be, I'm not going to debate too long, but it can be very easy. They give everybody a password on your main network, and that's it. I can log in here or from my, it's basically just, you have a password to log into your main.
He's not saying that it can't be done, but he's saying that they don't give out the information. They have to do it,
Yeah,
the same as they do for the board.
You have your own password, you know your password.
I don't have a password.
When you come in and you log into your Tenafly net, you don't have a password?
Oh, you mean the network?
Yeah.
Yes, but that's not the Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi network, you don't have a password to log in?
No.
Okay.
So then it's all
No.
insecure.
So then it's okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then joint use is still up in the air right now. We've been trying to pre-schedule meetings, but unfortunately, a time and date is set, but before the time rolls around, there's a change in the scheduling. So as of right now, the meeting that was scheduled for Monday, February 12th at 4 p.m. is no longer scheduled due to the board having changed their regular meetings to Mondays. They did request some information for alternate times and dates, either meeting earlier on that day or changing to a different day. I'm waiting for a reply from Councilman Park.
Count me in, what day it is.
Okay.
So that's where we are. And very important, our annual events, fireworks, July 1st.
That's a Sunday, right?
No,
Yeah.
it's a Saturday.
No, according to my calendar, it's a Sunday.
Did we go with Sunday? We talked about so many days. It is Sunday. Okay. Sorry, I'm sorry
That's
about
okay.
that. Like I said, tough. Trying to schedule.
Well, July
Yes.
4th is a Wednesday this week.
Yeah, and that's what happens as we're, depending on where July 4th falls. So fireworks, and this year is nice. Hopefully the weather cooperate. On several occasions, we've been able to hold the July 4th, the Family Independence Day, and fireworks on the same day, and it's always nice when that happens.
That's what we're doing this year?
That's what we're hoping for.
you
There
have a
are
rain
rain
date?
dates. The rain date for fireworks is July 6th. The rain date for Independence Day celebration is July 7th.
July 6th, which is a Friday, and the celebration would be on the 7th?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, let's see, and community night is September 25th, and the rain date is September 26th. And yesterday, we got confirmation from the Welcome Committee that the new resident reception will be on October 9th. That's a Tuesday. And what they chose to do, after a lot of deliberation, and I think it was a good idea, they were really having a difficult time with the September scheduling because of a lot of holidays and pre-scheduled annual events. So they have opted to move into early October, and they will hold the event in the McCandless Room. If the weather is nice, we can open the doors. People usually flow in and out. But this way, they feel as though they can get a little bit more time designated specifically for their event. And then you had the list of reports that were received.
Okay, on to correspondence. Mrs. Antonucci she's not here, right? We got a letter from her concerning parking. This is a home that has no garage. In reality, it really has no driveway either. Access to the back of the house is through what used to be an alleyway. It's no longer a through alleyway. I did a little research on this one, and although she mentions having 4 cars, I did speak to a member of the family. I won't quote who because I don't want to get him in trouble, but one of the 4 cars is a dead car. It belonged to a grandparent who passed away, and the car is no longer being used, and it's just sitting there. So, you know, she's created a little bit of a additional problem for herself. There's really no answer to this because I don't think we're in a position where we're going to allow overnight parking on the street. The house was purchased with no driveway and no garage, and they've got room basically to park 2 or 3 cars in an area behind the house. It's gravelled, and it's unfortunate, but I don't see any solution that we can do on this. The next letter is from Vantage Health, and we normally fund them. I think we normally give them $5,000 a year, $7,000 in our budget. And once again, I don't believe there's a need to respond to this, but you know, hopefully the council will see through and continue support to this company. They They do a lot of work in Tenafly, believe it or not. There's a lot,
And
lot
our
of clients in
contribution is
Tenafly.
acknowledged in their annual report.
Right. Next item is from, on the recycling schedule, and I'm sorry that Carl is gone, but I know that
Oh, he knows it.
Jewel and Carl are determined that this will be resolved this year, and I would like to think that you will present your resolution to the problem to the
February
council
6th.
on February the
Yeah,
6th.
but just wanted to say something. This is a problem that is existing for 20 years. It doesn't have to come to the council here in a letter so we have a resolution. This should be part of a good management. If everything comes to the council or explodes when we have a solution, that's not a very good management.
We didn't have to, I mean, we were asked to bring it to the council, and we were going to come up with a solution in any event, but we don't have a problem with giving.
Well, you're right, Max. We should have resolved this a long time
For
ago.
10 years, I
But that we already made the decision to resolve it prior to receiving this email. We did get a number of complaints in December, and at that point, we said, we're going to fix the problem. Next is the Northern Valley Greenway project update, which, I know Christine is very involved in it. I'm hoping that nobody has any questions for it at this time. We applaud your efforts, and you have our moral support, and, well, Andrew is here, yes, Andrew is, I guess,
has our
our
support, too.
point person. Well, how many point people do we have here?
She's the point, I'm just here.
Okay,
Because I
well,
go to all the towns.
between the three of you, we hope you get the job done, because this would be a tremendous asset to not only to the community, but to the region. So thank you for your efforts. Next is a letter of appreciation from the for the DPW employees, and although we don't always get a letter, this is not...
Hardly ever get a letter of appreciation.
But this is not an uncommon thing. The response DPW to sewer issues is really excellent. And
I think that's more, and than anything, it's the person that responds and does that. It's
It's really good.
yeah,
And you see it, right?
yeah.
Yep.
Dedicated, very hard work.
The next letter is from somebody, and I went through this myself a couple of years ago. I got tired of picking up advertisements from a gym in Closter, and I was told by our zoning official the only way to legally stop it is to send them a certified letter saying, don't drop it off anymore, and if they do, then they can be issued a summons. And that's exactly what happened. About a year later, they dropped something in my driveway. I went into the building department, and they issued a summons, and I haven't got one since. Now, I know the Northern Valley Press is picking up where the suburbanite left off, and they're dropping papers in driveways, and a lot of people don't bother to pick them up. They don't want them. So I think the answer should be, and maybe we should even put this in the newsletter at some point in time, if you're getting something in your driveway that you don't want, we can issue a summons if you send the sender a certified letter stating you don't want it, and then if it happens again, we can issue a summons.
I have a follow-up question on that. Well, I get various papers, not talking Northern Valley Press, I actually want that one, but lots of...
Advertisements.
Circulars.
Circulars, advertisements, thank you. But there's no connection, I've actually stopped the van in the street, I've actually run out to the van, and so if I get the certified letter and I don't know who to issue a summons to, and I think
Well, you don't issue the summons.
No, but I'm saying, don't...
You don't know who to send the letter to.
That's right, don't I have to give that information to the police?
Well,
We all get that rolled up.
Yes, and every time.
The circular
They
is
just throw it
usually
from the mail. I watch it.
from one of the, sometimes it's from NorthJersey.com, which is the, the owner of the record.
Okay.
There should be something on the circular that tells you where it's from.
Sometimes I get like 2-3, advertisements like, coupons and they're all rolled up together in a plastic, and of course I just chuck them out, but I've never really seen who they come from, but maybe there's a small print
There
somewhere
should
which
be,
I missed.
like our political signs, down the bottom, it's supposed to say paid for by. Well, we should also have that. Any questions about the resolutions?
I have just to mention something. If you look at the resurfacing for the 7 courts at Roosevelt Commons.
Which is the number?
It's the number, whatever. I'll tell you in a second. It's letter H, it's I, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah, it's $100,000 for 7 courts. The parking lot between the two pools, it's half the 7 courts, and right now we have an estimate of $300,000. It's something, you know, repaving 7 parking lots, 7 courts, $100,000, and repaving a half of that, $300,000. We need to look at it.
Well, first of all,
They're not being paid.
7 courts are not bigger than the parking lot. The parking lot is bigger. Second of all, the tennis courts are just being resurfaced, while the parking lot is being milled and paved. It's a bigger,
The
much
parking
bigger.
lot is a reconstruction. Yeah. Plus, it's not, you're not working with the same.
Any other questions on the resolutions?
You're not working with the same product.
Do we have
This
any-
isn't asphalt.
Do we have any further information on this tennis
Which
court
one is not
proposal
asphalt?
from Mazer?
The
On the
coating
tennis
for
court
the,
proposal?
courts.
Well, when you say any further information,
So,
It's more expensive.
again, we have a lump, I just see a lump
It's
sum
not
of
more expensive.
$100,000 here,
If it is,
but
anything will be
without
more
breaking down what,
well,
Again,
Susan, do you have a breakdown on that?
I wasn't remember the tennis courts, I see you talk about you're saying authorize, did you say I?
I didn't say I. Yes, I said I.
Authorize professional engineering services project for resurfacing. So I have to look at that. What was the amount?
$100,062.
Wasn't this something that was, well, this was already put into the capital?
No, it's not a question. The question is, you know, it's
See if you can come up with a breakdown and pass it on to Jewel or Lisette for distribution. Okay? Okay.
My question is on item F, just wording question. The first 2 full paragraph, whereas paragraphs are then repeated verbatim as paragraphs 3 and 4, whereas paragraphs.
Is that a typo, Jewel?
So I just want to make sure that that doesn't go forward that way.
We have 2 contracts in one letter, 2 contracts.
It's 1849, Lizette.
1849.
It's the template that the Riverside Co-op gives us.
Right. Yeah, I had emailed you all that. Just because they got it wrong doesn't mean we have to repeat their
Okay,
error.
Lisette, would you look at that and correct it, please?
correspondence, but it wasn't on this
It
list.
just follows uniformity, and it has to be reasserted. It's not just for the Riverside Co-op, it's when we join the other co-ops. It's exactly the same type of wording, so it comes from some type of cooperative.
Yeah, but I've never seen.
Jeff, all this proves is that you're the only one that read that resolution.
Yeah. But the.
We get paid by the whereas.
But the 2 whereases are repeated.
So noted.
Verbatim,
So-
and that's.
So noted.
So if we can just correct that somehow.
For the good of the order, Tony?
2 items. First of all, I look at the Department of Code Enforcement Property Maintenance Enforcement Report. I'm very disturbed as to some of the conditions of buildings in the borough of Tenafly. And I'm going to I'll point out one for now. You go to the car wash on Piermont Road, where Bud Clark's Auto Body is, it's deplorable. It looks like we're in the Bronx. There's tarps blowing all over the place. It's disgusting. That's not what Tenafly is all about. And somebody's got to make me smart here as to why we haven't cited them or said to them, listen, you need to clean up your act. That's unacceptable. Granted, Piermont Road is a disaster to begin with, both sides of the street, but let's not add to the misery by having a commercial establishment that looks like we're in the Bronx.
Which one was that?
It's the hand car wash.
I'm just using that as one example.
Sunshine or sunset.
Please.
I have a second example, actually, that's been raised to me numerous times this week alone, both by email, which I should have put in correspondence, and in person. Numerous parents have come and said the neon scrolling signs of the new business in town.
It doesn't scroll, I think they stopped the scroll.
Well,
Because
it's
I-
flashing.
Massage parlor?
Yes,
I just,
it's
I also
Inland
saw
Massage.
it.
The code enforcement people did go out there, so I'm I will check with Bob in the morning, but I believe they stopped the scrolling because that was illegal. I'll confirm with him that what they're doing meets our sign code standards, and then we can always discuss amending the sign code standards. It is very loud, to put it mildly. As far as what Tony said, I would urge each and every one of you, if you see a property that you feel, you really could direct it to Jewel or the building department and say, would you just have a code enforcement official go out and look at it? And then if they say it's meeting code, then we need to discuss the code.
They are very good. We refer
They're too
things
good,
to them.
actually.
Yeah,
They're really too many. I hate to say
We're
it,
getting
but
complaints that they're too strict.
That's good.
I've got complaints that some of the ways they put are inappropriate.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's different.
well, when you have a complaint like that, send it to Jewel, really.
Okay, I
You know,
will do
let her
that.
look into it.
We
because-
get complaints of that nature on occasion.
Tony, did you have
but
another
Some of
place?
our residents are.
No, I'm using that as the
Yeah,
premise.
no, I'll email you.
I also want us to explore, and I don't want it to be put into a round file, I don't want us to forget about it. And I know we've talked about it some time ago, and I don't know if I read it in one of the magazines or whatever, but there are some towns that are creating enforcement procedures against buildings, like downtown, we have all of
Vacant
those
buildings.
vacant buildings. We gotta start slamming them. We gotta start hitting them fines, we gotta increase their taxes, whatever we gotta do, because it's unacceptable to have, I mean, just go by where the bagel store is in Tenafly, it's atrocious.
Well, we've talked about that, but never moved forward on it. If you would like our,
Let me just, not to interrupt, because I actually met with the chamber to talk about what they were looking at something, I think, a little different than you guys are going to be talking about, but about vacant buildings and having a uniform requirement in terms of like display windows downtown when a building goes vacant, and we want to have some uniform.
Vacant maintenance, it's maintenance, we want the pristine look.
So what was suggested, and I thought was a good idea, but we can't require them to use something that we prepare for them. Someone made a good suggestion that we do require them to have a certain type of covering on the window, but tell them that we have available pictures of, old pictures of Tenafly, historic type pictures of Tenafly that will cover their windows. I don't know where we're going to get them from, but
Go look at the Verizon store.
that was a good idea to combine with a vacant building registration ordinance.
I think that you don't want to tell people that own vacant buildings they have to cover their windows, because the worst thing, I think, almost worse than a vacant building, is a window that's like covered with brown paper or something.
Not brown paper.
Well,
They're seeing pictures.
Well,
no?
Well, I don't know that we can.
Can you force
I guess
people
the
to
drummer
do
would be
it?
to
No,
require them a
Okay,
picture,
but going forward past that, though, forget about the pictures.
Why can't
We know,
cite them?
listen, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that those buildings have been vacant for the X number of years because the damn owner is
in transit,
creating too much, wants too much rent. So now if we start hitting them, maybe they'll lower the rent. That's the only way we can do it.
Bill, can we create an ordinance where after a certain amount of time, they have to pay a monthly charge?
You can have a registration fee for vacant properties, which in essence is the fee that they're paying.
On a monthly, can we charge them on a monthly basis?
I think you could do it on a monthly basis.
I would suggest to the council that we create an ordinance that after 1 year, all right, if a building remains vacant.
Isn't that too long?
No, because, sometimes it's not easy to rent a building. I mean, in all fairness. But after 1 year, a monthly charge of maybe $100 or $150, just start to.
A little bit more, Mayor. $100 is nothing.
Once again,
No, because these people are not interested to rent.
Just for a second, let's look at the mechanics of that. First of all, do we have a inventory of the vacant buildings?
How will we create
Yeah,
that
how do we
inventory?
know which one are?
Well, that's a good question. When-
I talked to
Walk
Bob
up and down the
Burns
street.
about that. Well, see, there's really two different types. There's a state law that applies specifically to foreclosed properties.
No, we're not talking about that.
I know, but those are vacants as well.
Right.
A inventory of just vacant buildings, that has to be done by a survey.
Well, because we were talking about commercial businesses downtown, because we're all aware of them. But vacant homes are probably as bad, if not worse, especially if you live on the street. And can this be included in a home that's vacant, left vacant?
Sure. But,
You would- you would have
a
to have
monthly
some-
fee, I think,
yeah.
causes administration problems. I mean, if you have to enforce it and check off that everybody paid their monthly fee, I think a quarterly fee is better.
Yeah,
Or even an annual fee.
I've heard of somewhere they have to register every 6 months. And at the time that they register, you can
They pay
charge
the
as
fee.
much as $500.
Yeah, but the point of the moral of the story is that we want to put pressure on them so that they rent it out. If we're being warm and fuzzy and say, oh, we'll only do it every 6 months or listen, these knuckleheads they're not going to care. You start hitting them every month, guess what?
If you have a list of 20 properties that are supposedly paying whatever, $250 a month or whatever, it's not that much paperwork to check it off when it comes in. And so, Christine, I'll make an exception. Did you want to add something on this?
Keep in mind that sometimes a building owner wishes to vacate the building so he can improve the property.
Well, that may be. Let them improve their property, but we're concerned about keeping the downtown looking. A year, that's why I say a year is plenty of time.
I put in this request 5 months ago for the pristine property, they have to keep it in perfect
Bill,
condition.
would you research and come up with an ordinance?
I did already collect some ordinances from other towns, that were similar. Most of them have an annual charge or a 6-month charge, not as
6
frequently
months
as
seems
monthly.
fine, but make it a
what's
heavy charge, not
what's the
$100.
time frame in terms of if it's been vacant for what, for a year?
Yeah.
You want to make it for?
Anything over a year.
It was vacant for a year and.
In a home, a residential home, 6 months, I would say.
What happens in a situation where, for example, the balloon store over there, where the owner passes?
Well, that's what we're talking about, that whole complex.
Well, of course, but now you have no one to charge.
No, yeah, but the owner.
The estate.
The property owner.
Business owner.
That was the renter who passed.
Okay.
The property owner.
Property owner.
Property owner, most.
To make this retroactive?
What,
wants to improve the property. It was
Okay.
waiting for the rest of the leases to end.
Sure.
Well, then let him explain that, and he can take care of the building, he can make them.
It's the taking care of, because he pulls it down, and if you go and look at the Verizon store in Fort Lee, on, I guess it's Lemoyne Avenue, they have beautiful sepia pictures of.
I don't think there's an interest in that, Christine. Okay.
Well, I had one question though.
Yeah.
Well, for residentials, 6 months, I mean, how do we define what's vacant?
And
Person goes to Florida for 6 months, their house isn't vacant.
No, well, normally when a person goes to Florida for 6 months, the house is maintained. The grass is cut.
It's not really vacant.
The grass is cut. It's not vacant. They're just on
It's
vacation.
the house is not taken care of, because I've seen, I remember that house in East Clinton which had grass growing forever. That is
Exactly.
a vacant house.
Well,
That's a perfect
It still
example,
leaves the
Shelley. Perfect
definition of what's vacant. If they cut the lawn, it's not vacant? If they take care of the outside, it's not vacant?
Well, then,
That's a very good question.
let's leave the houses out for now.
Right?
Maybe that's something for code enforcement to do, that if the
Well,
grass.
code enforcement does do it.
We
and,
do that already.
That house on East Clinton, we used to get summonses. Basically, what the court said was, they don't have to, the rest of the property can be maintained like a natural state. It's the area in the right-of-way that had to be cut. And so they were cutting that right-of-way, the first 10 feet, and the rest was woods. But that house is coming down now, because that gentleman finally passed away, and he left it to a trust, and they're They're emptying it out slowly but surely.
But Bill, if the house is foreclosed and it's under a bank, we're billing the bank that has to register it?
Yes, yeah, whoever holds title. The problem that I see, having been following on what's happening with foreclosures, is that the sheriff's department is about almost 6 months, 5 to 6 months behind in actually doing the deeds after there's been a foreclosure sale. So what happens is there's the house is listed, sheriff listed for sale. There's actually a foreclosure sale at the sheriff's department, and then nothing happens, and the house stays in the old owner's name, even though the bank has bid in either its mortgage, $100 plus its mortgage, or someone, third party, has actually made a bid at the sheriff's sale. So you don't see, on our tax records, we'll still see the old owner, who couldn't care less, is not gonna send us any money. We don't know who won at the sheriff's department, who won the bid, and they don't actually even own it yet because the deed wasn't done. And then it takes about 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks for the tax assessor to get the deed once it's finally recorded. So, when you talk about 6 months, we're not gonna know for that first 6 months anyway.
So why don't we leave houses out?
Begin with commercial
Begin with
properties.
commercials. Let's do the commercials, see how we succeed with that. That's more important because that's what everybody is seeing all the
Right,
time.
the commercial buildings, it doesn't help us with houses that are just not
Because
maintained, but that's still a code enforcement issue.
And let's not do $100. I would
Let's do the
suggest
commercial.
$1,000 at least.
All right, we'll do just the commercial properties for you.
At least $1,000.
But at least the state statute on residential properties.
Foreclosures
Foreclosures requires a notification of the
Okay.
responsible party.
Lisette? Lisette?
Yes.
Who put the old business on? Capital Budget Committee?
It was mentioned in the December.
That's the financial committee that we discussed.
It was the
that,
finance committee, but it's only for capital projects.
It's only for capital projects,
Yes.
all right. What I would suggest is we have no more than 2 council people on it, and I'll appoint a couple of people from the borough. I will entertain suggestions from the council as to, I know if Mark is interested, we could put him
Is
on.
this going to be a council-appointed committee?
Yeah, this-
I thought that was
yeah.
what we were working towards.
Yeah, we were working towards
We want
it.
a council-appointed
Well, the
committee.
council doesn't appoint committees, though.
It's an ad hoc committee, the
Right,
council
the
can
mayor
vote.
appoints ad hoc committees.
Can we not vote to appoint a committee which the council chooses the members?
No, there's
I mean,
no
it's-
board
no,
that
no-
council
I'm sorry?
chooses members.
No provision for that.
Yeah, council doesn't choose.
I mean, I'm willing to take your suggestion, Shama. You have somebody you want to put on the committee?
Yes.
Who?
Mark Sinner.
I just said I would put Mark on and 2 council members and entertain 1 or 2 more names from council people over the next couple of weeks, and we'll form the committee next month, at the next meeting.
What's the
I'd like to
charge
put-
of the committee?
You want to do it?
Well, the charge of the committee, if I recall correctly, is just to plan to.
I think that Mark has
No, not
put
Mark.
together some papers.
I'd like to appoint Adam Michaels as well. He's on the planning board.
Yeah, I know Adam, he would be fine.
I think
And he's a
he's a
financial
finance
person.
guy.
But we're not looking at numbers here as much as we are looking at, just plans, right, Mark?
No, you need numbers as well.
Sure.
We need someone else.
You couldn't
You
wait.
need numbers and
That's okay, well, for 3.5 hours, but thank you. So the whole purpose,
Last name, address.
Mark Zenna, Hamilton Place, Tenafly.
You're not going to take 3.5 hours, are you?
No, I was commenting on
How long he's been here?
how long we've been here tonight. So the whole purpose of the suggestion on the Finance Committee is not some sort of line by line what's going on with the budget. It's about big ticket, long-term capital financial investments that the borough makes. For instance, tonight, what the whole discussion over turfing municipal field was great. It got resolved. The bad news is, in 10 to 12 years, it has to get redone again. So perhaps we've come up with some ideas for how do we pre-fund that over the next 8 to 10 years so that money is available, you don't have to borrow for it, we help reduce the debt of the borough. Councilman Barzalato brought up the issue of the empty stores on Washington Avenue, that maybe we look at something, just throwing suggestions out, that this committee look at that in terms of what can we really do there? Do you look at that for a municipal purpose? Maybe If the borough wanted to put a new senior center there one day, maybe that's where the senior center goes, with some affordable housing. In other words, we look at large projects and then bring these ideas to the borough council, and then the mayor and the council decide, does it make sense or not? So it's
I would like
long-term
to
project
be on the
planning.
council part of, if you said you're going to have 2 people? Okay.
Is there another member of the council who'd like to be on it?
I would like to be on it.
Okay, in your spare time?
Yes.
All right, so I have 2 members. I have Mark and I have Adam, and I would be open to one more member. We don't have to pick it tonight. You think about it and just let me know if anybody has
Yeah, I
any
could put some
suggestions.
suggestions before the council if you'd like, and then you could decide whether they're appropriate or not.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
And we expect
Such a
you, now
pleasure
that
to
you're on
see you
that-
again, Mr. Zeno.
It's all my pleasure.
Now that you're on that committee, we expect you to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Say it now, or do I have to wait till next time?
Okay, that concludes our work session.
I have one more thing for the good of the order, Mayor. And since we're not doing committee reports, this has come up and it's...
We are going to do committee reports.
Oh.
Once we get to the
Never mind.
public meeting,
I will
if that
do it
ever
then.
If we ever
happens.
get to the government meeting.
Just confused.
Do you want a motion to adjourn this work session then?
Why not? A motion to close the work session?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and if you don't mind, I'd like to get through this very, very quickly, so I'm going to go right to the public meeting. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates for the year confirmed at the annual meeting are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of full revised or additional meeting notices are sent via fax to the Record Suburbanite Northern Valley Press and are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Salute to the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Barzilai.
Here.
The way. Councilmember Bash.
Here.
Councilmember Dayton.
Here.
Councilmember Grossman.
Here.
Councilmember Hader.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Here.
Mayor Russell.
Here. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes: 2017 recess, 2018 reorg. Motion, thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor? Revisions to the agenda?
Not aware of any? No.
Public comments? Anybody in the public want to speak?
Sorry. Christine Everon, 39 Leroy Street. For the zero tax increase, could you consider the concept of a zero cost increase? By which I mean, you could save a lot of taxes if you just got rid of trash collection, but then everybody's costs would go up because they'd have to pay privately for trash collection. Just keep in mind the cost you might put on the residents of Tenafly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any public, any other public comment? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Oh, wait, call the roll, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Barzilai. Councilmember Bash.
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton.
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Hader.
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, now my favorite part of the meeting, committee reports. Dan, you want to start?
TVAC met last night. They have 5 kids in training. I shouldn't say kids, young adults. And Jewel, they have a complaint about the new radio system, which I'm sure you've heard.
About the new,
Radio system, the police radios, they can't hear what they're doing.
you know,
That's Messenger reporting.
yes, they exempted themselves from the radio communications project.
Interesting. Okay. That's my report.
Ultimately, only police and fire participated.
Okay.
Well, nevertheless, Jewel, I think one just...
I mean, we have to deal with it,
One
but I'm
just-
just saying that we've had a project for 18 months, and they informed us at the table that they were not interested and didn't need it.
Okay, but in the meantime, speak to,
Chief Chamberlain?
I'm sorry?
Chief Chamberlain?
No,
No,
Cheryl first.
Cheryl, and find out what the story is, please.
Because she comes into my office and she never mentioned anything.
All right, next, Lauren?
Yes. So I have 4 reports out of 5. I'll start with the Chamber of Commerce. Christine Everon, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, has requested that the borough consider Wi-Fi in Eresco Park to have that option. So I will just pass along that information. The next committee.
Do you have any idea, does anybody in the room have any idea what that would cost? I have no idea whether it would cost $1,000 to
I can tell you because I've been, if it's a unsecure, regular repeater like we have, for example, here, that it's very inexpensive. Under $5,000, we can get 2-3 repeaters for the entire park. If you want to make it more sophisticated, but I don't think we want, so the entire project with 3 repeaters, the only thing that's going to cost is the power locations. If that doesn't have power, you have to bring power. The repeaters are dirt cheap.
Well, the question becomes, if we were going to provide Wi-Fi for a park, would Eresco Park take it over Hyler Park? I would think Hyler Park.
Hyler,
everybody
And there's
agrees.
power
And we
there
have
already.
power over there that's so much cheaper.
So, you know, once again, if that's what we want to do,
I think it's a
something we
good
have to put
idea.
in the budget.
Yes, I think it's a good idea.
Hyler
There goes to
Park,
zero.
Because that's where most people will congregate.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep in mind, I
And they
have
have all
It's a new initiative.
And that's right, and the Chamber of Commerce is going to pay for that.
We want to get traffic back and forth between the two. We've
So,
got money for Hyler Park.
good, if you pay for the Hyler Park,
Eresco Park, we want people to go there too.
so when we see the plans for the monument and the lighting, that will have power. We can put a repeater over there. So that's dirt cheap, so it's no problem.
Okay.
And keep in mind, I have yet to go to the Chamber of Commerce meeting, so this is just conversation.
Well, you were at the dinner.
Yes.
And that's their meeting for the month.
Okay. Then, the next thing is the Teen Youth Center, the Teen Center. Mark Slauson and I have discussed some possible basic maintenance of it. Number one, the floor is cracked and the linoleum is peeling. It's incredibly unsightly, and if I'm a kid who can't go home after school and I'm at the youth center instead, it's a little depressing to hang out there in that kind of condition. The kitchen, as I know, has already been discussed with Jewel, and that is falling apart. I mean, the sides of the kitchen are coming off the wood. I just think it's unsanitary.
He already has cabinets. I mean, he
Purchased?
already had, no, well, he has them budgeted.
Great.
Good.
So the other thing that what I would like to look into is the floor. I asked Mark to work directly with Jewel. I asked him to go directly and have a discussion. I believe the conversation between the two of them was that he was going to go looking at floor options. The other issue on the Teen Youth Center, and this is something that I'm not sure if we're aware of, and I throw this to Bill, is the center doesn't require any child to check in or out. So I've been there numerous times in the afternoon. Various groups of children are in and out. I've spoken to parents on their way to pick up the kids at 5 o'clock. I've gone over and spoken to parents, and the parents are under the impression the children are on municipal property the whole time. I asked the kids, hey guys, where'd you go? Oh, we went to CVS, we went to other places in town, they're in Washington Avenue. So now you have it's mostly big groups of boys, between 12 and 15, walking around towns as groups, and their parents are unaware that they're off premise. What Mark Slauson conveyed to me is that we actually want it to just be an in-and-out place. We don't want that
The summer camp is much stricter, but the youth center is basically a drop-in center.
So
we don't keep them there. It's not a
So
child care program.
The question then becomes is, do you believe it's necessary to make sure the parents are aware of that?
Yes. And I think if a parent would like to restrict the ability of their child to leave into town, they could go to the library.
We're not set up for that, though.
But, I'm just saying, the parent should be able to tell Mark, my kid can't walk through, Washington Street.
But we're not set, we're not, it's basically a space for kids to go to if they want to go to it. It's not, this isn't a SAC program where the kids are registered and they come in after school and they stay till pickup time. This is just a facility that the kids can, we're taking, it's a teen center, not a tot center. So we're assuming that the kids at this point have a level of responsibility. Now, if the parents don't understand that, I think that's a problem that we ought to address.
Yes, I think that's the key.
So
Parents must be
I think
taught.
this is a good point. I think you should discuss this with Mark as to how you feel we should go about, maybe just in the newsletter, let the parents know that the teen center is, not a after-school class,
Yeah.
program. It's a facility where the kids can come and go, and we don't regulate whether they stay there or not.
Yeah, I think we did it a few editions ago, so.
We ought to do it again.
Yeah.
Do it
again. New families, I know
Because there's a lot
families.
there's a lot of back and forth between the teen center and the library.
Maybe a short thing with the joint use, maybe the school sends it out and whatever they send out.
Sure.
That's a good
It's
idea
their
too.
parents.
Because
It makes
that's
more sense for them.
Yeah, they have access to the parents better than we do. I think that's a great idea.
that's a very good idea.
Bring it up at joint use.
Okay, so I'll leave recreation last, but the welcoming committee was next. And with the utmost respect, they thank the mayor and for the idea of the welcoming books, but the committee has voted. They would like to do away with them and move towards technology, towards the website. I sat and watched the books get created with a large group of volunteers that come, excuse me, not a group that comes often, not a large group, excuse me, who have basically said in no small terms, we really don't want to sit here with the copy machine and the collating and the books. We would like to provide postcards to the new families that say, welcome, here's some vital information, parking, don't park on the street immediately, here's your garbage and recycling, things of that nature, as much as we could fit in a medium-sized postcard, and please refer to our website and review the rules and regulations, and hopefully we can make our website a little bit more new resident friendly, here's a new resident section, please review, or something along those lines. The committee right now still has enough materials and books to finish out 2018. The postcards right now that are being sent say books by request, and they said if in the future somebody requests it, they'd like the ability to go to Staples or another type of printing instead of having to collate it themselves, so that the books can always still be an option for anyone who needs it or wants it in paper. But truthfully, they've been a little hesitant to tell you that, Mayor, so
As I said to you the other day, it's really their decision.
Okay.
But, once again, it's all well and good to say, well, if somebody requests a book, you go to Staples, but you gotta update these books.
Yes.
One of the toughest parts of these books is keeping them current.
Which is why the website might be easier to
Well,
update.
once again, I believe the book has a place, but the committee, it's the committee's decision.
Okay, and finally, the rec, as you know, municipal field was clearly the majority of that meeting. I do believe that they all reached out and were in support. But the other issue that's in rec is whether we can require co-sponsored sports, the boards of them, to only be Tenafly and Alpine residents. And
Why just Alpine?
so the rationale is that they'll be.
Sends us, they're in the high school.
My kids are coming from school.
So Tenafly and Alpine, because they both use our rec, and the co-sponsored because they believe in that level of involvement, it should be our local parents, they'll show up more. There's some people now who have been running these programs for a very long time who no longer live in town, and I actually raised that point in particular. I know one very long-standing person is running some sports, and they said yes, but it's too far removed and it's too difficult to contact, and we know if we have families here that are invested, we think we can build back a lot of these sports. So I don't know if that needs to come to a council vote. The committee would like to vote on it. I don't know if we.
No, it's really a committee decision, but,
Okay.
Lauren, you have to be careful because there's personalities involved here. If one member of the board clashes with somebody who no longer lives in town, I had the privilege of running basketball and baseball, and the only reason you have people on the board is they want to work.
I made that point.
It's all well and good. Frankly, I think the boards, I'd hate to have one of these organizations with a majority of the people that live out of town. But we have the same discussion with the senior center. Sometimes by including people, the senior center has a lot of people from out of town. The fellow that, this is really pointed at one individual. And
Who I don't know him.
well, I know, I'm not saying you're doing it. This is a rec board decision. It doesn't really have to come to the council. But I know what's going on there. It's personality driven, and I think that's unfortunate. If the soccer group doesn't want this guy, he's out of town. He's not hard to reach. He emails most of us all the time.
But it is their decision, so, you know.
It's their decision, let the board,
Let them do what they want.
you know, none of these organizations are run poorly at this point. And we have to be careful that the rec board doesn't micromanage. You know, they got their own, you know, mission. Let the, you know, if they have a problem with the way a sport is being run, that's their purview to get involved. But I don't think it, you know.
And talking about micromanaging, their last request is a request of Jamie Cannon and Jewel to do an inventory, a quarterly inventory of the field conditions. There's been some requests from the out of rec sports, you know, the ones who use our fields, that, you know, they show up to the field and it's not in a good condition that day, and there's no notice, or something's broken or, you know, soggy, and there's no, I guess, interaction between the borough on the conditions of the field and Jamie, and, because Jamie says, well, I didn't know about that, and, you know, maybe it's not reported, so we're trying to create maybe a reporting system here so that Jamie can at least have some sort of report that, you know, this quarter, this field needs X, and...
Well, that's a bit discouraging, because Jamie needs only to walk down to see Jewel to complain, you know, if there's an issue with the field. We also have a site supervisor that supposedly goes around, and he should be communicating any problems with not only the fields, but the parks and playgrounds and stuff like that.
So it's not happening in a way that's, I guess, efficient enough, because there's been numerous instances from what this board is explaining to me, where a team shows up to play in a field and it's not in a condition to
Why don't
play.
you set up a meeting with Jamie, that you attend, with Jamie and Jewel, to talk this out?
Okay.
It's certainly not unfixable.
Again, this is all conveyed to me. I'm the messenger again. Okay.
Very thorough job, thank you.
Okay.
Tone, you got anything?
I just, and it's directed to Lauren concerning the recreation, and I want an answer in writing.
Okay.
2 weeks ago,
Sure.
Tenafly Wrestling sponsored a tournament. It's the only tournament that they sponsored this year. There was such a lack of communication on behalf of our recreation department that the coaches were told that the wrestling match would start at 8:30. And lo and behold, they changed it midstream and said, no, it's going to start at 8 o'clock.
Who's they? Who, you say they changed it, who's they?
Is it Tenafly?
Department Chair of Recreation, Jamie. Now, to go further, there was a conflict with the refs, and the refs came, and because there was such a miscommunication, the refs, and it started late because it was supposed to start at 8, then it didn't start at 8, it started at 8:30, and by the time it got, so they lost almost an hour to a little more than an hour and 15 minutes of time. The refs, midway through the match, left. And what did that do? That left half of the Tenafly wrestling team, as well as other towns who came to this match, not able to have a match.
Where was this?
Now, how unacceptable is that?
Why did they leave?
How unacceptable is that? That is actually embarrassing.
Where was the tournament? High school?
High school. It's unacceptable.
It was a rec-sponsored
That's
event.
correct.
You know, I
But
think
why
what-
did they leave?
Because they had another commitment, because of the time frame. But in the meantime, I have a whole bunch of little kids that,
You a member of the wrestling team?
My younger son had his second
I'm so
match
sorry to hear
canceled
that,
because the refs had to leave.
That's
They were told they told us that the refs had to be in another location.
well,
Lenny
oh,
Barotas has told us.
Tony, I don't think you need to go any further.
Totally unacceptable.
That is
I think at this particular point, Lauren,
Yes.
Jewel can talk to Jamie about it,
That's
and
fine.
give us a sense of what went
What
on.
happened.
It's certainly got to, and when did this happen, Tony?
Do you know the date?
Saturday,
It was a week.
2 Saturdays ago.
prior.
2
Well,
Saturdays.
you know something, shame on us. This is something that on that Monday morning should have been brought to either Jamie or Jewel's attention.
Well, I'll tell you
the first time
what
hearing.
transpired on that Monday. As many of you may or may not know, my son is the head coach for that wrestling team. He sent out an email to all of the parents expressing how sorry he was that the kids were not able to wrestle. And
Well, this is,
that shouldn't, listen,
it's
this-
absolutely terrible. But let's get,
This is the first time hearing. I will absolutely follow up.
let's get, this should have been brought to her, Jul's attention on Monday morning, not 2 weeks later.
All right, thank you.
The only thing before I ask Shama, I just want to get the permission of the council. The senior committee asked me to invite the Bergen County freeholders to hold a meeting in Tenafly. I know sometimes the meetings float around.
Yep.
May is a senior something or other month, and we'd like to see if we can get a meeting here in May. The council has no problem with it. I'll send a letter out.
No, did they give you 3 dates?
Well, the freeholders meet on particular dates.
Wednesdays.
We
Yeah.
can't give them the dates. We gotta find out what date they would be
I thought
available.
we were talking also about the meeting with the elected.
Well, that's something, if you want me to handle it, I'll do it, but
No,
I thought somebody else was gonna.
yeah, they're
somebody
going to
with
write a
connections
letter
to the
for 3. Okay,
Democratic
all right,
Party.
okay, it's fine, no problem.
Okay. Shama, you have anything?
Yes, the library board, I went to my very first meeting of the library board. The meeting was dedicated mostly to electing the new board officers. Kathleen Cook is president, Pat Rouse is vice president, and Martin Gilbert was re-elected secretary and treasurer. And they discussed their budget and the figures that they discussed that. And basically they were talking about, I'm sorry, I do not have that piece of paper at home, but there was, you know, the library is one of our best features, and there's a Facebook page called 07670 which talks about Tenafly issues, and somebody had written a really, complimentary post there about our reference librarian, about how good she is, how terrific her services are. And you saw that, didn't you?
She's terrific.
She really is, and everybody at the board was extremely pleased with that. And they talked about the many programs they're considering. Leonard Nimoy's family has either made a film or is making a film about him, and they may be able to have an opportunity to show. It's like a biography.
Oh, neat.
So we are hoping that would come through. I think his daughter or his son has done that, or maybe both of them together. And the library has a book club also now. I mean, I attended, it's terrific. I'm sorry I'm going to miss the next meeting, but I enjoyed, it's an afternoon, and the one I went to was in the evening, and they also have afternoon meetings.
Good.
That's about the library. My other meeting is the Tenafly Senior Center, which Mayor, you were at, Max was at. It was at their general board meeting. They talked about several of their ongoing requests and issues. Is there going to be a new senior center? Where can we get the new senior center? That's always a question they're interested in. How are we going to do it? I'm glad the mayor was there. He was able to talk to them and explain to them what it would entail, and that it's really not going to happen next month. And there was discussion on their programs, and I think they did some numbers, and it's 30% of the people attending are Tenafly residents, the rest are all out-of-towners. But without them, your programs wouldn't be a success.
Wouldn't be viable.
They just won't work. And they also pointed out that a lot of the volunteer work at the library is done by the out-of-towners. The lady who does the plants, the lady who does the displays, a lot of them are dedicated out-of-town who really love the center. And they're looking to see how can we improve the membership for Tenafly residents, and they were discussing ideas about what would be feasible.
Okay, thank you. Max, you have anything?
Yes, I have. First of all, at your suggestion, I met with Chief Chamberlain, introduced myself, told him that I'm part of the whatever group and whenever the meetings are. It was an extremely friendly conversation. He basically said that the way now the police department is functioning, it's much better than it was a year ago. You can see in the number of summonses and everything else. the new young people that were hired by the police department have an attitude that's extremely positive. He was mentioning that how they basically moved out and got some free computers from Paramus, and they're gonna install them themselves in the cars and save money, and how they are taking it positive and stuff like that, which was extremely good. We discussed to keep in touch and any type of information that you know in advance or so to be communicating between us. So it's a very positive thing. The next thing was the meeting of the Senior Citizen Committee over here. I have to say that it seems to be a little bit of a overlap between what the Senior Citizens Committee wants to do with what the Board of Trustees is doing. And the suggestion was that probably they should get together and understand better so they don't have this type of question marks about what the role of each one of them is. The most important thing in Tenafly was that the bus that we purchased is doing a phenomenal job and everybody is very happy. The issue of taxes is paramount in on their minds, and they want to meet with the elected officials that represent our town, the senators, the congressmen or so, to discuss issues that are very important. How can they help the seniors and overall the people with a new tax law that it's hitting Tenafly and New Jersey at a rate that it's incredible. And also they wanted to have this opportunity, if it's possible, to see the position of those representatives in issues like the cap for the negotiations with the unions, and how would that affect our ability to raise money, and so on. So what I took out of there, that they are very, not scared, but very concerned that those people are on fixed incomes, and once financial decisions are made, they are pretty much defenseless in either getting additional incomes for themselves because of their age or so, and they just pretty much, not victims, but they are without the capability of compensating from all the other alternatives. That's pretty much.
Thank you. Jeff, you have anything?
Yeah, I have three quick items. Because Lauren was busy, I covered the Board of Adjustments for her, which I thought I'd gotten away from. It was a reorganization meeting. They elected as chair Mr. Adam Kaminsky. The one item of new business was an application for 23 Old Smith Road, an unusual property because it has a brook running through it, which makes it very difficult to redevelop with a new house. So it needed several variances. It was approved 5-2. The next meeting, Mr. Mayor, you were at it, the Planning Board, also a reorganization meeting, which brilliantly re-elected Mary Beth Wilmot as chair, as they should have. She's done a great job. And there were no real items of new business. There was correspondence regarding senior, and February 13th, a speaker on shared housing that I thought was an interesting topic. Then, finally, most interesting, the Historic Preservation Commission on January 11th, where they discussed the several properties on West Railroad Avenue and their designations as historic sites, Eresco Park, which you heard tonight, repairs at the Cotswold Estates, and a lot of concern about the preservation of the Roosevelt Monument at the Commons because it's apparently off and on in bad shape, and so a lot of concern about that particular item. And finally, a concern about any future use of the railroad station, because they've heard things like extending a second floor across the station, which they would oppose because the ceiling would be too high and is a key part of the station, and any change in the use of the kitchen, because the kitchen currently is cold kitchen, and changing that would create danger of fire, stench, all other issues, so they just wanted to make sure. Finally, they set their 2018 goals, the designation of those properties on West Railroad, future maintenance of the monument and the train station.
Thank you.
That is my report.
Okay, folks, it's getting really late, so I'm going to try and move this along. Let's do the introduction to the new, to the tree ordinance, please. Dan, can you take that quickly?
I move to introduce and pass on first reading ordinance 1801, set the hearing for March 6, 2017 at 8 p.m. or soon thereafter in the Tenafly Municipal Center.
Second?
Is it a new resolution, Bill?
The corrected one? No,
The corrected
one
one.
that was modified, yeah. I'd added just a small phrase at the end to make it clear that, that patios, sidewalks, driveways, and decks will still require mitigation. In other words, they wouldn't be part of an expansion or addition, yes.
Ordinance number 18-01, an ordinance to amend and supplement Chapter 26 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly entitled Trees. Councilmember Barzalato?
Yes.
Councilmember Bash?
Yes.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayter?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Thank you. No mayor's remarks. Would you read the closed session item, please?
Resolved in compliance with NJSA